Hello, everyone. Welcome to another Monday night, another Oddcast. And as you would see, I am by myself. I have it on good authority. Topher Field is no longer with us, both physically and spiritually. And that's a good thing for all of us. So naturally, I thought maybe I'd recruit some people. So I'm going to add in the new Topher replacements. And we have one Rukshan Fernando and one Avi Yemeni. Welcome,
Wow.
gents.
It takes two of us to replace Topher.
To replace Topher. But this is the great replacement happening, guys. You're watching the great replacement happening.
This is it.
On this two brown for one white. I like
two brown for one gorgeous white, Avi. I make up the quotient of the opposite sex here. I carry the show with my good looks.
It's usually me on our
Well,
side.
that was not the reaction I wanted. I wanted a little bit more like,
I was
anyway.
agreeing with you.
We're agreeing, yeah.
How are you,
guys
gents?
going?
Been a while
Yeah,
since
good.
we've spoken. We've come back to a pretty full-on week. Last week was pretty quiet. Now all of a sudden it's just kicking off. We've got fuel excise being cut by elbow. We've got Moira deeming, failing the pre-selection, and then a whole host of other things happening since. I don't know what it's up to. The news is moving fast. Desi Freeman has been shot dead by the cops. And the war in Iran just keeps causing chaos. I've heard it that your blokes are now trying to close the Red Sea off, Avi. The Houthis are trying to, the Yemenis.
I never know in that conflict who's my guys.
The one with the surname, the same surname as you.
Yeah.
So what do you guys make of this whole fuel excise?
What?
Jesus.
Listen, this wasn't
We
fun.
were getting along so good, and now we've got this bloke just coming in to cause so much.
Carly, listen.
I
I'm
agreed to
flattered.
do this without Topher. What is going
Exactly.
I am deeply honored that you felt the need to bring on two people to replace one, but I'm deeply insulted that these were the two you picked. Okay.
It was a 50 to get.
What can I say? I had to scrape the bottom of the barrel.
You broke through the bottom of the barrel. There isn't a barrel anymore. It's just a hole in the dirt. Look at the color of them. They came straight out of the dirt.
Yeah, the sun got burnt at the bottom of the barrel.
I was going to say
guys.
that cover photo that you guys had, it was very, I don't know who made it, but was I
Which one?
represented
The cover photo?
for this podcast? Was I
Where
represented
I'm
as a
a
slave?
gladiator princess.
Yeah, I feel like I was represented as a slave just based on the colors that I was wearing.
I did not even see it. What did I
You
look like?
picked up on that subtle reference, did you?
You had the royal purple from Rome, so and
You mean this one?
Yeah, this one. I'm pretty sure I'm wearing the slave colors. So I don't know if that's some sort of like internally
You look
within
dirty,
your mind.
Rukshan. You look like you've just had a hard day's
And that's not
work.
even me. I look half like African in that one.
Don't blame me, blame Ike. But can we have a look at how gorgeous my hair looks?
Look,
Love it.
everything in that looks exactly the way it should be, except that, Carly, you've fallen for the trope of female fantasy armor not actually doing a good job of protecting the body in the event of combat. So I'm sorry, I'm going to dock a half a point off you there. But besides that, it's a 9.5 out of 10.
Hang on, what was
Always
exposed?
nitpicking this bloody Topher.
Show us again, Carly.
Hang on, where are we? What was it? Hang on. Look, I'm all right. If I get stabbed in the arm, she'd be right. But like my chest and my heart's covered. Topher, why have you got like one arm covered? I mean, you look very, I don't know what we say.
Actually
Here. I'll be nice.
I'm offended that you put me in armor at all, as if my enemies could ever lay a blow on me. I don't need armor. I'm too fast, too clever, too smart. Just have me in there naked. That's what you should have
This
done.
was so much better without him, I just got to say.
But we all knew that already.
We did. Shall we get into it, boys? Can we
Yeah,
talk
we need to get into
about
it. There's so much.
Airbus elbow finally succumbing to pressure, and he has decided to cut the fuel excise for 3 months. Because if inflation wasn't bad enough, if we weren't in debt enough, let's just start throwing money at the problem. That'll fix it. What do you reckon?
What does it help when there's no petrol at the Bowser, though? Thank you.
This is
A discount for nothing.
the whole thing is a farce.
But this is exactly the point, Avi, that in actual, I mean, I'm all for cutting taxes anytime, all the time.
I'm not going to complain with that.
Yeah, I mean, but cut them permanently, right? Don't just sort of fiddle with them. But right now, when there is a supply shortage, like understand, the problem is not the high prices. The high prices are the symptom. The problem is the supply shortage. And if we cut taxes now to make it more affordable, guess what happens? The supply shortage gets worse. So, like, this is literally the one time that you'll find a libertarian saying, actually, cutting taxes right now, maybe not such a great idea. And of course, this is the one time he decides he's going to do it.
I think the
it doesn't represent like at the average. I'm just talking about the average person out there, guys. It just shows that the costs have come down a little bit, and that's what most people want. Like the everyday person looks at the cost of fuel and sees that it costs extra. They're not thinking about all the macroeconomics and all these kind of things. It just costs them extra. So for them, at least it's some sort of cost relief. But I understand your overall point. But I'm saying for the average, isn't
that going to essentially drive up the price of it for when the excise drops? So you're only hurting ourselves in the future. But even without it, I think the focus needs to be securing the oil, the reserves, because I was looking at it today, just working on like I was doing a story for it. But and what I realized is that Australia is in the lowest. We've got the lowest reserves out of the developed world. We're one of the lowest things compared to everyone else. Like I don't know who's
I think we're on par with Turkey, aren't we, or something?
I didn't see Turkey on that list, but yeah, I wasn't looking that low down. I was just thinking, holy crap! I never knew that we had no reserves, and it just points to. I just find it funny. The other part that I find funny in this whole story is the Greens getting real upset about it all, and I'm thinking, what are you complaining about? Isn't this the policy you want? Isn't this your net zero? Isn't this your zero emissions? Why are you complaining about the government doing whatever? You should be celebrating this. In fact, you should want more wars in the Middle East so that it ensures we all drive EVs.
Well, this is honestly what Greta said, wasn't it? Greta was all anti-fossil fuels, and the second that Cuba gets cut off, she's like, no, we want more fuel to go to Cuba. We want more oil.
I would have thought that if anything was going to make the Greens love the Jews, it would be them creating an oil crisis. Like, honestly, like, is this not a match made in heaven? And yet somehow it's still not enough. Can I comment on the oil reserves thing? What Albo's doing is he's being very clever with his words and his definitions. So on paper, people think that the IEA, International Energy Agency, requires us to have a 90-day fuel reserve. They don't. What they require us to have is 90 days of the amount we import by net. So this is, we can discount our exports, deduct that off our imports, and we only have to keep a 90-day reserve of the difference between the two. Guess what the difference is between the two in Australia? It's negative. We export more energy than we import, right? Now, not in terms of petroleum. In petroleum, we import more than we export. But if you look at the coal and you look at the crude, we export more energy than we import right now into Australia. And so this is where they get to play their games and say, oh no, we're completely compliant with the IEA minimum reserves, whilst also having, as you said, Avi, the lowest reserves of any developed country in the world.
And what does it all matter what the rule is with the governing body when right now it does like that's if you listen to the wording that his wording in the press conferences, he's saying that he's expecting the other countries to we give and we're expecting it to be a two-way road because we give them certain energy and he's expecting this energy back. And it's like, well, when the whole world's kind of is demanding this specific energy, you're going to struggle to get it. Like that's just the way it works, and we've got to have our own protection. But it also like pushes the idea of, because the other thing I noticed is that they're talking about the benefits of the fact that everyone's moving, and you can see sales in EVs has shot up, and it's like I just don't get how are we going to power those when you're moving away from all the other energy sources that we have here in Australia. You're moving to sort of the unreliable energy that's just not going to be able to power it. If everyone goes onto EVs today, we're screwed.
Yeah. The other thing I love is...
Sorry. I was going to say, like, with the EVs thing, I mean, Australians, Rukshan, you kind of touched on this. Australians don't think past their nose, right? They're looking at today, fuel prices are high. Anthony Albanese is slashing it with the fuel excise. Fuel goes down, yay for me. They're not thinking about long-term what this does to the country economically. But also with the EV thing, I've seen so many smug Instagrams and TikToks of people going, oh, fuel crisis, I wouldn't know. And it's like, that's great. But that car that you own is also a liability for you financially. It doesn't have long-term resale value. Those lithium batteries can't be reused. A lot of the parts can't be recycled. So you end up having obsolete technology that we don't know what to do with. We've seen the same with all the green stuff as well, with the solar panels and, of course, the wind turbines. So you would almost argue it's sort of like a trap that these people fall for with fast fashion. It's like it serves today's purpose. It's cheap, it's effective. You think you're winning today, but very few people think about 5 years from now, 10 years from now, when they're going to be paying for these these shortcuts. And I think the big issue that none of our politicians want to address, apart from maybe like your One Nations and the people who are more on the fringe when it comes to the energy stuff, is what this is actually costing Australians long term, not today, but in 5 years, 10 years from now, what it's going to cost. I mean, look at what lockdown did. You know, we cut the fuel excise during lockdown. We threw money at the problem, and now we're all paying for it in a cost of living crisis.
I made that point today. $2.5 billion is today's announcement from the government. Well, that's just like what they're upfront about, which means it's going to blow out a lot more than that. $2.5 billion. Where do you think that comes from? We don't have $2.5 billion. It just added to our debt, which means we're getting charged interest on top of this debt that we're taking on now, which all comes down, like COVID, to a government-created crisis. It's not even the Middle East. Like, the Middle East should not affect us in this way. You know, there are people I see even in Canada, the Rebel team in Canada, they were surprised when they started seeing that our petrol stations don't have petrol suddenly. They're like, wait, how's that happening? So it is actually a unique problem that we have.
Yeah. And it's absurd because per capita, we have the most resources of any continent. You know, people talk about, most of Australia is uninhabitable. Yeah, but it's full of oil, it's full of uranium, it's full of coal, it's full of all sorts of good stuff. Whether or not it has the climate you want to live in is kind of beside the point. We have the largest number of energy resources per capita, and yet somehow we're the hardest hit of the developed world. I want to pivot slightly onto kind of a sub point, but I think it's an important one. Notice that one of the measures the Albanese government has taken is to temporarily reduce the fuel standards to allow them to shandy in some lower quality Australian refined fuel. Now, this is because Australian oil is a particularly light crude. It gets refined in a particular way. It's, you know, different oils will give you different byproducts, blah, blah, blah. I'm not a chemist. I'm not deep into that world. But the bottom line is it was more cost effective to export Australian crude at a slightly lower quality for use in foreign markets than to refine it up to the standards required in Australia. What that means is that all this time we've been paying more than we could have for our fuel because they've had these standards in place. I liken it a little bit to the Victorian government charging a windfall gains tax when it rezones land. It says, oh, well, we've given you all of this extra value on your land, so you owe us tax. No, hang on. What you've done is you've stopped taking away all of that value. That land was already that valuable. It's just that the government was never going to say yes to you building that thing on that land. So the government's actually been taking away all of that value all of this time. And then when they give it back to you, they want a piece of the action. And the government is kind of doing the same thing here. They've taken from us all this time through the fuel quality standards. We've been paying more for our fuel. We've been less self-sufficient as a country than what we could have been. But now that they're giving that back to us, they're like, oh, pat us on the back, please. Look what we're doing and how wonderful we are to help you in this crisis.
I like this comment here, but I whenever I see collectively, I think the warmth of our collectivism, and I think I think communists. But I mean, there is a point to this. Australians need to think collectively more and individually a little less. When I spoke to old people when I was a boy, I was amazed at how they first saw themselves as part of something, and I would agree to that. There is a certain level of a lack of community mindset with Australia now. You know, most people don't even know who their neighbours are. And I mean, we're seeing bits and pieces of this, people going and panic buying fuel like they did during COVID. And I think a lot of that comes down to fear as well. I mean, you know, the mixed messaging coming from Albo at the moment. 2 weeks ago, it's like, there's no fuel crisis, we're fine, everything's great. Now it's all of a sudden, let's talk about rations and slashing fuel excise.
He was kind of clever with the wording, though. That goes back to what Topher was saying before, because I was looking for exact phrases and I realized how careful he was not to say that there wasn't a fuel problem. He was very sneaky in the way.
Well, that was him, because I watched Chris Minns in Sydney, New South Wales, give a press conference, and he was a lot more open about potentially even having some type of restrictions in the future. Like his language was a lot more like, this is possible. It could get worse.
New South Wales had many more, or is it just me? Because those are the ones that have many more petrol stations that are missing.
They seem to have more based on the mapping data that we're seeing on fuel shortages. That
what do you think
New
that
South
is?
Wales seems to be impacted. I'm not sure entirely, to be completely honest.
What's it? What was his name? From COVID, the funny Lebo, John Bernard. Was that his
Yeah.
name?
Oh no! Yeah,
Rouge.
John Bernard. Yeah. He
Bernard.
did a skip last week,
Did you
and they
see
think it's
what he
him.
did?
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
yeah.
He did a
He did.
skit.
He's
That
done a
was
bunch of funny
hilarious.
ones. He's done a bunch of funny ones over the COVID stuff, and I was just there was one where he's wearing a mask around his mouth. He goes 2021 buying petrol, and then 2026 with the mask over his eyes.
But I did see on some of the panic buying things that people are misinterpreting, perhaps, like people that are taking their jerry cans to fill up stuff to take back to their farms and things like this were being photographed. Normally, you wouldn't notice people doing these things, but because of the heightened sense of what's happening, people are actually filming other people at petrol stations now. It does remind me of COVID in that sense.
It
like
does.
People
Oh my God.
dubbing on each other, filming each other, putting things online, getting
Mutual
into
police.
business.
It's a bit scary seeing how every man for himself in Australia.
Yeah,
like that.
and even now that we got the government getting involved with the petrol pricing, for instance, I can already see the eventuality that people are going to start keeping a track of petrol stations and potentially, having arguments around the price as well, which is okay in the sense it's a corporation, but still, we are kind of being led down this path of policing ourselves as well, which doesn't really work out that well. In Victoria, at least from last experience that we had.
Yeah,
I'm gonna.
We'll be right.
I'm gonna show you this skip from John Bernard because I actually think it's really funny. He was taking the mickey and like playing on the fact that people were doing exactly what you said, filling up jerry cans. And the funny thing is, the reaction went so viral, people thought it was actually him doing it, even though anyway. It's worth a bit of a giggle. I'll play it quickly.
Hey, mate. Hey, you going to leave anything left for me? Hey, don't take all that fuel, mate. What about me? God damn it, man. He's leaving nothing. He's taking it all.
What the fuck are you recording? What are you doing? Come out of the car, have a crack. The fuck's your problem?
Greed. You greedy man.
You want to be a fucking Karen and record? Get out of the car, cunt. Get out of the car, you Karen. Come here. What are you going to do?
You greedy man. You got to be...
And then... this is what happens.
Update on the petrol crisis in Australia because people are losing their minds. We put this skit up yesterday just parodying some of the people that are panic buying fuel in Australia. It did the rounds on Twitter and a lot of people thought it was real. They want us locked up and deported. Some of the comments are crazy. Un-Australian, are they making a car bomb? They look like terrorists. This bloke broke the news. 2 Muslim men seen hoarding fuel and intimidating people. I don't know where he got Muslim from. That's just not the case. Even this...
Anyway, I thought it was pretty funny. But yeah, you got to take the piss out of this stuff, don't you?
But it is sad. I don't like the attitude that it does feel un-Australian, the toilet paper thing and the people that are panic buying the petrol. It's like, dude, if like even with the toilet paper thing, it was like, if we really run out of it, like, so you got yourself an extra couple of days worth. Does that feel better than causing whatever drama? And a lot of it's driven, like the panic buying is what drives a lot of the price rises and things like that, because the demand.
But it also just
Carly,
it sets a tone of fear in everyone. Yeah.
Did you introduce Rukshan and Avi to the drinking game?
No.
Okay, so there's a drinking game. This is relevant to the conversation right now. There is a drinking game that gets played. The Oddies, who are our loyal Oddcast followers, they have decided that there are certain words that come up so frequently that they get to have a drink every time they come up. Last I heard,
it's
since
more
the
like
Oddcast
Russian
started
roulette.
a year ago,
You will die.
Yeah, since the Oddcast started a year ago, the number of stomach pumps required in Victorian hospitals in particular has more than doubled. So in the interest of the drinking game, because I'm aware we haven't hit any of the keywords recently, if we run out of toilet paper, we can just use a little trick that I learned when I was in Venezuela in 2015. Venezuela is one of the drinking game keywords for those that are new to the game, and just use money. Because by the time you've reached the point that toilet paper is genuinely worth a fortune, that means that also money is genuinely worthless. And I kid you not, when I was in Venezuela, the $1 Bolivar note, which was their smallest note, essentially their $1, their $1 Bolivar note was worth less than a single square of toilet paper. And it was also softer and less likely to break and have your finger give yourself a rectal exam. So it was really a win-win-win on every single direction. So I'm not that worried about running out of toilet paper, because by the time that happens, your money will be worth so little that, I mean, I don't know about wiping with coins. That could be a bit different, but as long as you've got notes, you'll be fine. Can I say though, we make a lot of jokes, but I want to draw attention to this comment here. So Found Hope has been following us for quite some time, and he's been doing it tough for quite some time. We've had some conversations via the comments with him before. He says, as a full-time worker who's been living in a tent since December 2025, I'm now happy to let it all burn down while I eat my cake. And beneath this, obviously, there's a lot of personal frustration and personal pain for him as an individual. But there's a really powerful truth here, and it's one that was brought out, I think, really well by Konstantin Kisin when he spoke at the ARC launch. And actually all four of us were there at the ARC launch in London a couple of years ago. And he talked about the fact that when people can't buy a house, then they can't put down roots and they don't feel like this place belongs to them anymore. And those basic sort of senses of loyalty, that community, that knowing your neighbors, that being in it together can never form. And so it will be interesting to see, we live at a time when it is particularly difficult to buy a house right now. And a lot of people think they never will. I think that's actually incorrect, but there's a lot of people who believe they'll never be able to afford a house. They'll never be able to buy one. And a moment of stress like this, high cost of living, etc., at a time when a lot of people are in a situation like what Found Hope is talking about here, really, really doing it tough. This has a greater potential to fracture us than I think even COVID did. Just because when we came into COVID, I don't think we had as many people doing it as tough as what we have right now.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you because, as we look at the circumstances we face today and the discussions that we have around, the cost of living, immigration, and the stresses that all of that is putting, in terms of social cohesion in our community, a lockdown style scenario, anything like that, or any kind of fuel shortages where we kind of against each other, almost pitted against each other, in a way, I think would just create those fractures even greater than anything we've seen before. And you already kind of see that a little bit with a bit of finger pointing at certain communities and things like this in the discussions, especially around, the communities who are involved in that conflict overseas. But I think there is that potential. And again, I still hold the government accountable for all of it, because even the fact that people are panicked is because they don't trust the government. We should not be in this situation in Australia, this first world nation, so-called. We should not be in this situation where we're worried about these things, because this is always a possibility. These guys are talking about this was like, they're like being, this is always going to happen potentially, right? So why not be prepared for it? Like, this is actually exposed how pathetic our government is when it comes to managing our energy, whether it's the fossil fuels or our, power plants, whatever it is. It's just exposed that they don't really have. If this crisis was actually just happen overnight, and let's just say like there was massive bombings and everything kind of went to shit in the Strait of Hormuz, what would have happened in Australia in that week or so? Like, we were not prepared for anything like that, and that's possible to happen. So,
and it's a good point you made, because at the end of the day, everyone knew that this war was going to happen for months. It was like a build-up of months. So
it was a tinderbox. It was ready to go anytime.
Carly?
Yes.
Not trying to start nothing, but I just want to say that if you ever decide to ditch my sorry ass in the gutter and move on to greener pastures, I already have another Carly lined up. So I won't even have to remember the name of a different person. I will just swap you in for another Carly.
If she's a Carly, she's already awesome.
I'm just going to keep on trucking. So Carly Unfiltered is awesome. We've been texting back and forth today. She's been amazing at uncovering some stuff to do with the Moira Deeming situation that's going to come up a bit later. So actually a little bit of Carly's work is going to be on screen a little bit later in the episode today, stuff that she's been sending through to me that she's managed to dig up.
Before we move on, can I just touch on something? This is also part of the drinking game. I am adding it. This is the first time, but I make a joke all the time. Avi, Rukshan, I apologize, but we're going to have a little Jackie O. Kyle moment here. I talk about Pluto and Aquarius, right? It's this whole thing that happened 250 years ago.
I'm out, guys. This is your problem now. I finally, guys, I'll be back in about 45, 50 minutes.
Well, I love it. Good. That was the easiest way to get rid of him, guys. Did you like that?
I got a headache already
from Topher or from me?
Topher. Oh.
No. Okay.
Yeah, that's fair. No. That's fair.
The point I've made in previous times is that there's a lot of things that seem reminiscent of the whole French and American Revolution, right? 250 years ago. We talk about the let them eat cake moment. There are so many parallels here. And I make that joke, Pluto and Aquarius, because it's an astrological thing that keeps popping up. Anyway, having a look at where we are now, I just made a reel this afternoon where I talked about how a lot of these politicians, they're career politicians.
Drink. Carly talking about her own reels. Everybody drink.
Should I play it?
What are you
Should I be
drinking?
that insufferable?
I'm drinking kombucha like a real girly man.
You're going to need a crap by the end of this show.
I'm on really, really brutal antibiotics right now. Do not talk to me about my gut bacteria.
But yeah, so like, for example, with Albo, right? He's a couple of days ago, he talked about us carpooling. That was a suggestion he threw out there, which is embarrassing to say the least. I mean, most people from one household will go in totally different directions every morning. The idea of going down the street, hi, I'm going over this way. Do you go that way? It's just silly. It's not real world application. It's not pub tested, right? But this is what happens when you have these elites who have been in the political world for 30 years. They've never had a foot in the real world. They don't understand how the real world operates. They don't understand how real people go about their day. And then they make these lectures to us from their podiums. It's no different to what happened in COVID with all the celebrities. You know, remember that whole Imagine video that went around and all these celebrities going, I'll just stay home as I lay in my 20 bedroom mansion and I'm fine. The difference between the haves and the have-nots is so obscene now. It's getting to a point where, and I understand, I disagree with it, to be clear, but I understand why so many Gen Zs are now romanticizing socialism, because life is a lot harder now. The idea of owning a home for millennials and Gen Z is almost out of reach. The idea of being able to have everything that our parents have, we're the first generation to be declining in the standards of living compared to our parents. And I can see why that resentment's building. So when these crises keep popping up, whether it's COVID and now we've got a fuel crisis and the potential of, World War III, as they're saying, you're seeing a lot of people becoming incredibly resentful.
Settle down.
But, I think this like Rukshan made a good point when people see that the idea that, the petrol's going down, they see that as that's a win. They don't really care about the repercussions down the line. I think what this is showing is a lot of our politicians have been in the political swamp for so long, they don't understand the real world and real life scenarios. And what you're seeing now is a big contingent of people who have been politically apathetic most of their lives, not so much the more activist kind, the more left-leaning people, but your average person, I hate saying silent majority, but your average punter who's now going, hang on a minute, I have to decide, like during COVID, I wasn't allowed to earn money, but now I have to decide between turning my heating on because utility bills are so high. Now I have to decide whether or not I can afford, basic things at the grocery store. Now I have to determine whether or not a trip is worth the petrol that I'm going to be spending to go there. These are things that people go, well, hang on a minute, why did we end up in this situation? And now people, I think, are finally looking and going, well, what the fuck's happened? And this is the cost of us not paying attention for the last 20, 30 years.
Well, we've talked about it before. One of the biggest underlying problems that we have in Australia is that we've had it too good for too long. We haven't actually suffered. We saw this during COVID. One of the comments that I made, and I'd love to get your thoughts on this, Rukshan and Avi. I think we've talked about this before a long time ago, and I think you saw the same thing, but I'd love to get your thoughts. I noticed two groups that I believe were distinctly overrepresented amongst the protesters, the people that got off their ass, took the risk, got out there when it was dangerous.
Imagine being able to build an app.
I don't need to imagine being able to build an app, Avi. Thank you for that.
Are you that bored, Avi, or watching other videos?
No. I just, because I don't think it went to my YouTube, so I was just clicking the links to see if it worked. But anyways, not bad.
And then you got an ad on your own YouTube. All right. So two groups that were very much overrepresented. The first one was Christians, but the second one was first or second generation immigrants. I would have said 50+% of the crowds were first or second generation immigrants. And I would talk to them, and overwhelmingly I'd say, well, why are you here? Because I've seen this before, or because my dad told me about this. My grandmother told me stories. That they knew what they were looking at. And I think in Australia, we've had it too good for too long, and we no longer know what we're looking at. Something like this was regrettably necessary to get people to actually go, hold on, I can't continue to ignore politics because politics is actually hurting me now.
Well, that's what I thought COVID was, or you were talking about COVID. for people.
No,
to
I was
think
talking about COVID as the wake up, but I think that definitely woke up a chunk of people, and we see that in the polling for One Nation and so forth. But I think a lot more needed.
I think people went back to sleep once it was over, and that was what I feared. I feared after it, or two things happened: either they went back, they got back to life, they got over it, they forgot about it, or they like to erase it from their memory, so they avoid it. But then the other people that stayed in it kind of went down a rabbit hole and went completely nuts. So I don't know. I don't know.
And I do agree, Topher, with your observations around the people that were at these kind of protests and things like this.
Yeah, I remember
that representation was correct. And even now, like with this kind of fuel thing, I do find Australians of immigrant backgrounds are a little bit more resilient in terms of they've experienced these kind of things before.
Well, just on that, Rukshan, you see people now who have either from, have gotten away from the USSR, or you've got people who are Iranians. I mean, we had Dibba, who's an Iranian. He's one of the big protest organizers for the Melbourne Iranian protests. And he came on, and the amount of people from the West who love to lecture these people who have seen it and experienced it firsthand, it's kind of disgusting, because the Western voices have always got to insert themselves as if they know. I mean, you got your Greta's and all of her ilk, but then of course you've got the people in Australia who think they know better. I mean, just the other day I was talking to someone about Cuba, and they were like, "Oh, Carly, that's not true. I know about Cuba." And I'm like, "Have you been there?" And they're like, "No, but I read it on the internet." I'm like, "Well, I've been there." It's like Topher talking about Venezuela. It's like, Avi, you've been in the Middle East, Rukshan, you're an immigrant as well. Like, these people have real world experience. They've seen it with their own eyes. They've experienced it. Their families have gone through it. But no one in the West, I shouldn't say no one, but few people in the West will take their opinions seriously. There seems to be either the white savior complex, or it's also gross ignorance.
I don't think it's a white thing. Like, even for myself, for instance, like Sri Lanka's obviously going through this fuel crisis as well, right? So I've been seeing some of the news there. And about 3 weeks ago, they actually gave Wednesdays off. They made Wednesdays a public holiday just to deal with the whole issue that they're having, right? And they've started rationing fuel, and they've got QR codes to go to the browser and fill up and all this kind of stuff. So they've got a whole system, because they've been through it many times. And it's a small country. They don't have anything like near Australia. But even when I was watching that, right, I remember thinking that would never happen in Australia. Like, we wouldn't have that problem. Like, how unfortunate it is for my cousins and relatives in Sri Lanka to go through this. But now we're talking about this in Australia as well. So I don't think it's necessarily like we expect a standard of living in our country for it's a first world country. We pay a lot of taxes. These politicians promise us the world. We don't expect to find ourselves in this type of situation. Like, the average person would not think that they will find themselves in this situation where we're talking about rationing fuel, for instance, as a possibility. And again, that comes down to what Avi said. In Canada, for instance, they're not going through the same struggle. And it really comes down to the government here taking us for a ride for all these decades. And now it's all kind of being exposed.
What do people have for until you could get off the grid batteries for solar panels? You used to have petrol generators. People still have petrol generators in case there's a blackout. That's your backup. And you would never think that we would run out of petrol in Australia. It's the one thing you think, all right, that's going to be a safe. You've got to be able to get it, because if you can't get it, nothing can function. Well, guess what? We're on the way to nothing functioning, and it's scary to see where that leads, to be fair.
And again, I think Australians haven't experienced, most of us native Australians haven't experienced just how bad it can get. I spent some time in Port Moresby. Not only would the electricity be off half the time, the water would be off probably a quarter of the time. A couple of times a day, it would drop out for an hour or two. And it was normal to have a pot full of water on the kitchen bench at all times, so that when the water went out, you would use that. You just scoop water out of that to have a drink. And then if that got low, then you just have to cut back, and then eventually the water would come back on and you'd refill that pot. In Venezuela, obviously the power was very, very intermittent there as well, and it was just completely normalized. And we think that can't happen here. We think that somehow we're magically immune to that. But if we do the stupid things, we get the stupid prizes. We play stupid games, win stupid prizes. We are not magically immune. We are immune if we work hard and make good decisions. The problem is we're allergic to working hard, and we're making stupid decisions.
Well, just to follow up from that, I mean, I just saw in the chat, people have misunderstood me. I made a comment weeks ago when I said lockdowns weren't severe enough. They weren't. They weren't enough to wake people up. You're seeing it right now. I mean, it woke certain people up for sure. But as Avi just said,
Someone clipped that.
most of them just went back to normal.
Carly said lockdowns weren't harsh enough.
Yeah.
She wants
100%.
stronger lockdowns to protect us from petrol. Did you see that Green senator talking about wanting lockdowns for?
Oh God, no.
Yeah.
But my point on this is
that? I haven't seen that either.
Yeah.
My point was with this stuff, for a strong contingent of Australians, COVID wasn't bad enough for them to recognize just how bad things could get, right? And the point I made before about how a lot of Aussies won't listen to Iranians or people who have immigrated from places like, you know, whether it's Vietnam, Cuba, other parts of the Eastern Bloc. These people have real world experience. They can tell you when things are going bad. They know that the decisions the Australian government is making today can lead to really drastic, catastrophic decisions. This is happening. It's already happening. We've got a very progressive prime minister, Anthony Albanese. He's a professional activist. This is someone who flirts with communism. He's making decisions that ideologically make sense to him, but don't have the Australian public's best interest at heart. That's my point, in case it's really unclear for you guys to get. We have politicians who don't care about the Australian public. They're pushing the ideological agenda. And when you have people who have immigrated from countries where they've seen this before, they're warning us. The average Australian just doesn't care.
All right. So we've got a couple of other big topics we need to cover. I reckon we've probably covered most angles on that.
Do we want to touch on this one? I know people in the chat will want to hear about this one. Let me pull it up. Bloody ads, go away. There you go. Desi Friedman shot dead by police after a 7-month manhunt.
Yeah, well, we've got to talk about this one. Not a surprising outcome. Sad that there is another person dead, the third one to be killed in all of this. You can't win. As a commentator on something like this, you can't win. So I'm just going to come out and say what I think needs to be said. The police should never have pushed Desi the way that they did over a period of years. Desi was trying to work within the system. Now, I disagree with what Desi did. I'd come across his work before. I'd never met him, but I'd come across his work before, chosen not to promote what he was doing because I looked at it and went, that doesn't quite work for me. But he appeared to be trying to work with the system and the tools that allowed for peaceful redress of grievances. He got pushed to the point that I believe, came to believe that he was not going to be successful through peaceful means. And he took a step that I don't believe he should have taken, which was to take the lives or to use potentially lethal force, which ended up taking the lives of 2 police officers, leaving 2 families without fathers. And now my understanding is, through a source back to someone who was on the ground at the time, my understanding is that Desi, although Victoria Police are being very careful to say we haven't formally identified him yet, that he was the first to open fire this morning. And the police responded. And to be honest, you shoot at somebody, you are authorizing them to use lethal force in return. I can't get too upset about the fact that the police did what they did in return. I think it's just another tragic step in a very, very tragic story. I think mistakes were made on all sides, but I do not believe that there was a justification for Desi to escalate the way that he did when he did. That's my position, and that's a hill I'm willing to lose followers over.
Man.
I personally I agree with some aspects of it, but I think based on how all of this has gone down, from the first shooting on the 25th, allegedly what happened there, and again what's happened today, one of the biggest things I've seen is people don't trust the police in general, just even the public. And we haven't really seen, I know there's active investigation and all these things going on, but I think there has to be some type of public inquiry or some I know the coroner's going to be looking into it and all this kind of stuff, but there has to be some sort of public element to this, because there is a massive distrust of Victoria Police and the things that they say and do. And even today, I've watched both the press conference from Victoria Police, and they keep reiterating that they did everything properly as it pertains to what happened today. And that is because there's a deep mistrust of the police. So I think they've got to come clean. We need to get body cam as much as possible from Victoria Police of both incidents. Even when the first incident happened in Popanka, I spent some time there, and some of the things that I've heard and seen, and the people I've spoken to, I'm not, again, justifying what happened, but I'm saying there needs to be accountability in how that transpired with the police and what the public has been told. Because it's one thing for Victoria Police to put their version out there, and it's completely sanitized through the media, and that's what we've given, and that's okay. That's what they do. I mean, they represent their force. The union represents them. They're going to speak on their behalf. And again, I'm not here defending the actions of Desi Freeman, but what I'm saying as a public, we need to know that when police, go after people like this, or when they try to apprehend a certain person like this, based on the history of what's happened, that things are happening above board. And I'm not saying I don't believe the police or anything like that, what they've been saying, but there needs to be an element of transparency. And I think that's what's missing. And again, I don't know if the coroner's investigation, it's not like a court case. It's not like a criminal kind of thing where they got to release all this information. I don't know how transparent it's going to be, because I think the public deserves to know exactly what happened there, because otherwise this will linger on, guys, for a long time. Sure. There will be conspiracies around this. There's been lots of different
conspiracies either way.
There's going to be conspiracies either way, but we haven't
I agree with you.
We see shootings in the US all the time, and all these incidents happen. What do? They put out the body cam footage. They alleviate the concerns the public has, because at the end of the day, Victoria Police is a arm. It's meant to be serving the public's interest, and we need to be able to trust our police force. Even in incidents that involve a police shooting, I think that should be required. So whether we'll get that or not, I'm not sure. But if we don't get that, it's just going to have this, we're just going to have this conspiracy kind of style hanging over it for a very long time.
Yeah, and I think it is
what were you
important.
going to say?
No, I was just I agree with all of that, and I just think that right now I haven't seen anything that indicates anything to justify what Desi Freeman did. He got, at the end of the day, from my perspective, you got what you deserved. You start shooting, you start killing people. You're gonna play stupid games, win stupid prizes, as they say. But I would like to see transparency around it, even just for the sake of good cops, for them. Like if the cops did everything by the book, for the public, the normal public that are going to accept when they see actual evidence of what happened, something like as easy as the body cam. I understand on the day there were things that were done in the heat of it that may have been, it may not look the best for police. That doesn't justify what had happened before. It doesn't justify any of it. And you got to take the good with the bad. At the end of the day, this guy shot 2 cops dead, who I can't see any justification for it. And at the end, I can't believe it took him 6 months, to be fair.
I've got I was going to say, I've got a different take from this. And look, I'm not really particularly interested in the whole Desi thing. Like you said, there's conspiracy theories flying everywhere. And like all of us who particularly were in Victoria, I have a particular bad taste in my mouth for, the cops, particularly the way they worked during COVID. But that being said, my best mate's sister is a cop, and she's also part of the group that were involved in this whole Desi thing. And she was meant to be there that day. She got pulled away for something else. And I've seen the toll that this has taken on their family, because it's like one of those could have been, what could have happened kind of things. And when you're faced with the reality of, your loved one could die doing their job, right? At the end of the day, regardless whether you like cops, don't like cops or whatever, these are people who have families, their brothers, sisters, mums, dads, the like. Seeing that toll that's taken on her family and what it meant, there's an element of this, like, at the end of the day, anyone being shot or murdered, I'm going to call it murder. Those 2 cops were murdered. They were. Yeah. Exactly. It wasn't self-defense. They were murdered. And, losing your loved one through murder is something that no amount of body cam footage or anything will replace that or also heal that wound. That's something these families are going to be burdened with the rest of their life. So when we're having this discussion, you can be on Desi's side, you can be on whatever. I don't care. But the reality is people died, and that deserves consideration for the people that were impacted by that.
Yeah.
Well,
2 things.
It does, as long as you're. I think it does matter if he's guilty. If I just don't believe it was self-defense, and you've got to have to prove to me that it was self-defense. I think the body cam, and I think the police have to show that. So there is no justification, and I totally stand with the cops. And I just don't think. I think after COVID, because we had such a rough time in Victoria, especially, people were angry. and Desi especially was angry, but there was a lot of people in that camp or leaning towards that direction that was super angry and could never see a good cop. Well, I was on the front line. I was on the receiving end of bad cops, but I'll tell you, I've been on the receiving end of so many good cops, and good cops are good people that actually put their life on the line every day to serve and protect the public for good reasons. And, you know, if they go to their job, like Carly was saying, like if they go to their job one day, like any of us, you know, I go to protests where people want to kill me, and trust me, I get killed at one of those things, there's going to be a lot of people celebrating. Great. But nothing anyone does going to work justifies it unless they it justifies them getting hurt or killed, unless they've gone and they've physically threatened and the other person is doing it in self-defense. So in this case would be unless police came, you know, shooting him, he had no justification for what he did, and he should be condemned by anyone, even if you don't love police.
No, I agree with you, Avi. I agree with you. But all I'm trying to say is, again, I'm not defending what's happened there and what Desi has done, but the way that police, you know, prosecute these type of witness searches, or you know, the way they went after him, these kind of things need to be transparently discussed in public, because there is a possibility
for their sake.
For their sake, for the sake of the institution of policing. Because
I agree.
I personally believe, from the things I've heard and the people I've spoken to, that there are issues there with that first incident at Paul Punker. I'm not talking about the murder of the police. I'm talking about the way that the police carried out their actions that day. There has to be a reckoning around that, where the public needs to be given insight into what happened that day, because the fear is, now that Desi Freeman has been, you know, shot by the police, everything's like the investigations that would have happened around that, all that's put to bed now.
Swept under the rug.
Swept under the rug, and we don't find out exactly what happened that day.
So, Carly, I want to apologise for saying that you talk too much and you're very difficult to get a word in edgewise, because these two make you look like an amateur on that front.
Let's keep talking.
Let's keep talking.
So, there's three things I want to jump in with real quick. Firstly, Mary, you can keep your mouth shut if you really want to, because I'd suggest you probably know a lot less than certainly Rukshan, who's been on the ground in Port Punker, myself, who's talked to eyewitnesses who were there on the ground in Port Punker.
What's Mary
and I've also had direct communications with someone who was there this morning. So you can probably shut your mouth. Just, you know, and sorry, the reason I'm having a go at Mary is because she followed up with a comment saying that's directed at Tofu. So I'm just saying, hey, Mary, why don't you shut up?
Hey, Mary, I like Mary. Hi, Mary.
I don't know what Mary said, but if she went against you, I'm with her.
Okay, excellent. So on the issue of police, so during COVID, I said to my sister-in-law, who's a cop, and her now ex-husband, who worked in corrections at the time, I said to them both, and it was a very frosty Christmas this year, I said to them, what you are supporting the Victoria Police doing is destroying the relationship between Victoria Police and the public. You are burning goodwill so much more than you realise, and this is going to hurt you later on. And this cuts back to what you were saying, Avi, or I think what we've all kind of agreed. The level of mistrust. Now, that doesn't justify what Desi did, but it is the source of a lot of people's concern and mistrust for the official story of what happened, and concern about the official sort of dismissals, and it will never be laid to rest. It just never will, no matter what anyone says. But also, the reality is, Rukshan, you're absolutely correct. We need to know more about what happened at Port Punker, and we need to know more about what happened this morning as well. There are some unanswered questions, and you and I are both familiar with specifically what some of those are, as well as more generally, you know, there's some stuff that was really weird. I want to talk about one thing in particular, and this is just pulling out one thing. This came to me originally from an ex-Special Operations Group copper who reached out to me, and he was extremely concerned. He reached out to me on the day of the Desi Freeman, the Port Punker incident, and he said, Topher, I don't understand. It makes no sense to me that they would assess the risk to be so high that they would send 10 cops, but not have the Special Operations Group involved. There is no risk level. They do risk assessments before any sort of operation. And obviously Desi Freeman's known to police. There's a lot of interactions there. They do risk assessments. And there is no level that says send 10 cops.
I bet it was just like a resources thing. They're like, oh, are we going to wait an extra day or two for SOG to arrive, or are we just going to do it now?
His concern was that Victoria Police Command had chosen to create a situation that was likely to get out of hand. That they were going to send in a bunch of cops who were not properly equipped, and based on what I understand from what happened on the ground, they literally didn't have the right equipment. They couldn't even gain vehicular entry to the property, and they were not properly briefed on what they were potentially faced with. And it was a situation that was, in the opinion of this special operations group officer, calculated by Victoria Police to create an escalation. That was in fact their intent in how they sent these police officers.
Surely he doesn't think that they were setting up their own coppers to get killed.
I think he believes that they were trying to set up a situation where those coppers would kill Desi. Right, okay. where there would be an escalation, the cops would kill Desi, and it went the other way. Now, of course, this is me receiving messages as I do.
Listen, we need the body cam footage just to talk Topher off the ledge here.
Yeah. This is an important layer of understanding. When we talk about the police, there's the frontline cops and there's the backroom decision makers. And the backroom decision makers are actually politicians. You have to think of them as politicians. They are politicians working their way up a different tree. They don't get voted for by the public the way that actual politicians do. They're working their way up the bureaucratic chain, but that is a political process. And you have to pander to the actual politicians in order to succeed on the way up that chain. This could be a situation where actually there weren't two forces involved. It wasn't Desi and the police. It was actually Desi, the frontline police, and the backroom police. And actually what you saw was the backroom police trying to create a situation that neither Desi nor the front room police, the on-the-ground police were actually cognizant of.
I think there's an element of this too. I'm just reading the chats. Like, there's a lot of people who are pretty pissed off with the police. And I totally get it. I understand completely. But there is this element of like, okay, you're pissed off with all police. What's your suggestion? This is something that gets me really worked up when people like, all cops are terrible, all cops are pigs and all this sort of stuff. I'm like, okay, cool. So what's your solution? What do? We fire the entire police force and recruit new ones? We recruit new ones that police. Yeah. Well, this is the thing, right? Defund the police until, you're one of the people that gets fucking attacked by a machete-wielding teenager in your house and your car gets stolen. Then you want the cops, don't you? Even though they're useless, by the way, in that situation. But my point is, like, the conversation around all cops are terrible, defund the police, it's the same thing. Yeah. At the end of the day, what we're saying is that the people who are in these jobs, we are hesitant to support because there's a lot of damage to the relationships there, right? How do you fix that? There needs to be a solution. What is the solution? I'm yet to see someone in the chat present one. The solution is exactly what Rukshan's saying, transparency. Okay, something like this, it's got a lot of public attention. The media is behind a lot of the craziness around it. I think the media should be more accountable. They are direct. They are the direct line to the government in most of these situations. They get their statements out. They're more concerned about their headlines. They're more concerned about getting clicks. They want the headlines that get more people on their pages. I understand all that. How do we fix this? It is a transparency from the people involved.
They're also more concerned about getting access.
Yeah.
So as soon as they start writing negative things about whatever political institution, and like Topher was explaining, is that the Victoria Police institution, the back end of it, does work as a political body. And I know that from personal experience. Remember when I sued him and I was getting that apology from him, and it was months of back and forth. They were offering me money, but I didn't want the money, and it was all over one word at the end of the day, and it had to get approved at the top level of Victoria Police to call me a reporter. That was their whole thing, and because of the political thing of what that meant for Victoria Police to then recognize me as a reporter in black and white in writing, right? That just gives you an insight of how that institution actually works. So there is a political arm, but I do, I've had a lot of interaction with police, and I've got to say to people, as much as I'm willing to confront a bad cop or a cop that's doing bad things, abusing, overreaching his power in COVID, I would say the average copper you're meeting on the street, the majority of them are decent, are there for the right reasons, even if they sometimes get it wrong. The institution, and I think it's a mix of between what Topher and Rukshan is saying. We need more transparency, but we also need to clean out that political institution of the police. And they did what did they get? They got that new police chief from New Zealand, who apparently is meant to be a straight shooter, who is supposed to be somebody that I don't know. I just heard that from what's his name, Sean Plunkett in New Zealand. I asked him what he knew about him, and he did give me that answer. I don't know. I also don't know how corrupt or how broken that system is on the back end. And will just changing the Ayatollah at the top change anything? I don't know.
Well, it must be broken if you have to bring in a foreigner technically to run your police force in the state of Victoria. Like, that shows you how bad it is in terms of the issues that they have.
They can probably find an Indian one.
I think I'm just reading the chat here, and people like, oh, what's your solution then, Carlz? I mean, the solution is a really robust conversation, kind of like the one we're having now. A lot of this stems from the top. A lot of this is the fact that we've had a Labor government for the better part of 2 decades. There's no incentive to change. Why would they change,
Real
right?
separation of power you need.
Correct.
We have that in theory. It's not real.
Yeah, the application is very much not the case. But when it comes to these sorts of things, I mean, you look at the cops, right? Most of them are poorly paid and they're poorly treated. The conditions aren't great for the job. So what people fail to understand is the incentive is really low for good people to become a cop. I've seen lots of comments here going, oh, these are mostly new cops. They're not good cops. All the good cops left. Why would you stay?
Why did they leave?
Correct. What incentive is there to stay if you're treated like shit, if you're constantly fighting a bureaucracy, you're being weaponized against your own community, and the pay is shit and the terms are shit, and no one takes you seriously? Like, for example, I go to the gym around the corner and there's a police officer that works out with me. And I only just sort of met her recently, like the last month. But she's one of the cops that works in the local area, constantly arresting and releasing the teenage thugs, right? And she's so exasperated by it. She's like, it's become a joke now. What else can we do? We go out, we arrest them, they're back out tomorrow, we arrest them again. We know them all on a first name basis. What incentive is there for good people to become a cop? And that's where the overhaul needs to start with. We want better people.
The crazy thing is the political back end that Topher was referring to will have the cops back when it comes to political enforcement that they approved, but real old school policing, they won't. So all the good coppers have left because, when they used to deal back when I was a kid, I was a teenager.
Can I just touch on this? $70,000 a year to put your life on the line. That is fucking peanuts. I'm sorry. That is a peanuts wage.
And then, and it's not only putting yourself on the line, it's that when something, so like I was about to say that back when I was a kid, there was a fear, a respectful fear of police because you knew they would belt you if they caught you doing the wrong thing. Today, the criminal, you look at the young thugs, those kids that are running around with machetes, they know that they have more rights than the police arresting them. And if they touch them slightly wrong, they're in trouble. Then on top of that, you have the DEI hires, the ones that are, the quota filling. So you have guys that have to work with a girl that's just, they don't feel secure, has their back. There's so many problems. The whole system is rotten for so many reasons. And if you want to know how to fix it, well, fix the system from the back end, get rid of all these woke things that they introduce, stop politicizing policing, and start letting cops do their actual jobs. Not, there was also a problem back then with corruption in the police force. So you've got to ensure that we don't go back down that road. But let your old school tough coppers who know how to speak the language of the criminals and let them chase after the real criminals instead of all this crazy policing they're doing or all this, Mardi Gras dancing they're joining.
Topher makes this point all the time, Avi, where he talks about how the way to solve these teenage thugs is to break their legs. And I would agree. I mean, this whole gentle parenting, soft touch, we need to get in before they become this point. I mean, obviously I'm invested in this because we had a home invasion, but a lot of the commentary is around, we need intervention when they're young. I'm like, well, that's great, but we already have a bunch of teenage thugs who are already hardened criminals.
Sorry, Carly, you've misrepresented me there. I wouldn't want people to think that I was advocating that young violent thugs should have their legs broken. I've specifically said their pelvis and their jaws.
My apologies.
Okay. The pelvis is infinitely more painful and requires a lot longer to heal from. It will slow them down for a lot longer. And the jaw will humble them. They can't even chew on food or suck on their boyfriend's dicks. So I think that's a really important distinction to make there. It's pelvises and jaws. That's what we need to absolutely destroy on any of these young thugs. The minute they've swung a machete at an innocent person in a home invasion, in a shopping center, any of this stuff, sorry, red line crossed. You go into a dark room with a bunch of people who will absolutely destroy you, and you will spend 6 months in physical recovery and probably 5 years in mental and emotional recovery.
There's a reason why these young thugs, who often are at the moment, they're part of these second generation, from African immigrants. There's a reason why they ain't doing it in Sudan. Let's just say somebody's going to swing it back and nobody's going to miss them.
Correct.
That's so like. And I'm not saying, I don't want to become the third world, but you need to speak a language that they understand. And whether it's those thugs or whether it's actual organized crime, whatever, or different gangs that we have, that they don't respect the law here. And why would they? Why would you respect the law? I've spoken to crooks that have told me they've done the maths on whether the crime's worth it as they get older. So there you're talking about, but they've done the maths that often the punishment, even if they get caught, is still worth the crime. They'll actually make this amount of money. The tobacco one's a great example. Why the illegal tobacco blew up in especially Melbourne in Victoria is because that it's so lucrative that all you've got to get through is one investment, one shipment, and you're a multi-millionaire. And even if you got caught at the end of it, like, it's just, all right, I'll do my couple of years and I've made more than this is the way that they look at it. Yep. And so we've incentivized crime.
Yeah. And also parents can't intervene now either. And I mean, this is kind of off topic, but I've been seeing like a bunch of, it's a new trend on Instagram, right? Where people read out emails they've allegedly got from clients or parents. And a lot of teachers are now doing it. And we've seen recently the teacher strikes and everything. And like everything with the social media trend, it becomes a contagion. And I've watched so many teachers talking about how these parents are actually the ones who are asking for this leniency from their kids, right? So this is actually across so many different chains of command for when it comes to the kids. They're not getting the parenting at home. They're not getting the correct teaching from school. They've got a state who won't hold them accountable when they do something wrong. It's across the board. And this is a result of 20 years of, gentle, progressive approach to parenting, as well as raising kids.
I love this comment you've got here from Ben Frail. Quite a few African parents send their children back to Sudan because they consider Australia such a bad influence on their kids. No joke. What country was it that said they were no longer sending their university students to the UK because they were getting radicalized?
UAE, yeah.
I mean, sorry, the alarm bells are ringing here on multiple different fronts. Are we listening? Are we hearing the alarm bells?
Shall we move on to our next topic? Because I feel like we'll stay on this all day.
This one's going to be a big one.
I do have a tangent though.
We haven't
made Arvi and Rukshan sit through one of these. They
had no idea because Arvi came to the first birthday, but he nicked off before the tangent time, didn't he? He never. Wow. Well, this is a cultural experience, gentlemen.
No pressure. All 1,724 people
Carly,
watching.
Can I hear it from you one more time? Those beautiful words. What is it time for?
I have a tangent.
Tangent time, tangent time, tangent time, tangent time, tangent time. You got to do the jazz hands, boys. Come on. I'm going to keep singing until you do the jazz hands. Time. Come on, Rukshan. Time. Don't leave me hanging.
I understand now why immigrants are taking over everything.
Immigrants come into this chat now and take over.
This is why I understand why
Rukshan, get the Indian bots onto this. This is ridiculous.
Oh, shit. So I don't know, how did tangent time start? I don't know. You did it once and then it's become a thing ever since, and now it just gets more ridiculous.
I'm just going to say I was drunk at the time, and anyone that knows my history knows that's probably true. So that's it. We're stuck with it now.
I like to lighten the load every now and then because it gets really heavy and really dark. But since we have our token, one of our token browns on the show, who is a Sri Lankan, I just want to let everyone know that I'm planning to go to Sri Lanka at the end of this year. And I would like to hear from Rukshan where I should go. Tell me a bit about Sri Lanka, because I'm going to go to a elephant sanctuary as well. Everyone knows I'm obsessed with baby elephants, so that's part of it. But also, what have I got to look forward to? Sell it to me.
The food. I think the food. It's
Sri
very
Lankan chicken.
Sri Lankan food is good. It's very cosmopolitan. It's like a mix between like Thai food, Asian food, obviously Indian food. It's a mixture of all those kind of things
like
together.
any of them. He's talking shit.
No, I'm saying it's a mix. It's like a fusion of all those kind of different cooking styles. But yeah, the food, obviously, big thing. You're going to be eating a lot of food. Hopefully, the fuel crisis is ended by then. But they do actually have priority fuel.
You get Wednesdays off.
Tourists. You get Wednesdays off, but they got priority fuel. If you're a tourist, you get priority fuel for your travels and all this kind of stuff. So you're okay.
Wow.
Hopefully by that time, because they want to protect the tourism industry. Obviously, it makes sense. So that's still going to be okay, Carly. But I would say, the thing about Sri Lanka is there's a lot of history there. So you're looking at a couple of thousand years of history. So there's a lot of ancient things you can go look at as well from the historic time. Then we have like the history of the Portuguese, the Dutch, and the British history as well. So there's a lot of historical monuments from all of those eras. And then in the center of the country, kind of there's like the tea country areas. Along the coastline, there's all the beaches for surfing. Then there's the wildlife safaris that you can go on. So there's a lot of things to experience. And also there's a massive nightlife happening as well in Colombo. So lots of international artists come there. There's lots of concerts. It's very happening. Like depending on what you want to do as someone visiting the country, there's a lot of things to do. But I would recommend just hanging out with locals.
I don't know if I want to do that.
Hang out with that at local places. Like get good recommendations on food, because a lot of the like in the city itself, it's probably more expensive than Australia. Some of these places, like some of the hotels, are, like bigger hotels than what we have here in terms of the costs of getting a room and things like this. It's similar to kind of what's happening in Dubai in some of those areas. Yeah. So there is that. I think it's just you don't want to experience that. You want to kind of get more of the local experience as much as possible.
100%. I love this comment. Apparently, we're not allowed to have good news. When someone else is having a good time, we've got to shit on their parade. That's the tall poppy if I ever saw one. Oh God, guys, come on. We're allowed to have different experiences. Well, that's good. I'm excited to go to the tea plantations. I'm excited to go see some heffalumps. But I'll have to get some recommendations from you.
Yeah, and look, it's very different to. I've seen here people in the comments asking about the safety. It's very different to India. Even when I've traveled to India for work, being from someone that's got a Sri Lankan background, even for me, India is overwhelming. Whereas Sri Lanka is a bit more like if you travel to Bali, for instance. So just imagine that. It's very different. It's a bit more very laid back, the island lifestyle as well. And it's quite safe. Obviously, in any country, there's issues like we have in Victoria. Anything can happen anywhere.
I was going to say, after having a home invasion, I don't know about. I'd call Australia safe right now. But...
Yeah, exactly. But overall, especially if you're a tourist, you'll find people are very hospitable, and just speaking English, you'll get along fine. Everyone kind of speaks English or understands English, and everything's in English. So yeah, it's pretty easy.
Thank you.
So new drinking game. Every time Avi shows his ADHD. You can have another drink.
What do I do? On
his phone like a bloody Gen Z.
Record levels.
Listen, I don't want to hear about Rukshan's bloody country. If he loves it so much, why doesn't he just go back?
Go back to where you came from, Rukshan.
There's no fuel there, but there's no fuel here as well. So
maybe we should have an Oddcast.
You know what I'm really shocked about?
Yeah.
Me and my wife want to go on a holiday because we just need one. We need a break after this episode of the
She needs a break from you, Abby.
Yeah, no. I think she just wanted to go on a holiday alone. No, but then I was like, no way, it's going to be super expensive to go anywhere. But the flights to Bali are actually so cheap at the moment. I don't understand how they're paying for the fuel to get there.
Yeah.
They're literally like, it's cheaper
than any time. You couldn't pay me to go to Bali.
You don't like Bali?
I hate it. Hate it.
Not anymore.
And as someone, can I just tell? I won't tell the volcano story, but as someone who's
I want to
Or
hear the
should I?
volcano story. It sounds like it's going to repeat in Sri
I'll
Lanka.
give you the Cliff Notes version, right? I've been to 78 countries. Oh, no, sorry, 77. Sri Lanka will be my 78th. I shouldn't get ahead of myself. I've been to Bali twice. First time, I really didn't like it. I stayed in the Seminyak area and I was unimpressed. Second time I went back, I was there for a job and I was staying at a villa and it was my job to photograph the villa and give them all these photos for their Airbnb. And that was whilst COVID was just happening, right? And so we're in the pool laughing at all these videos coming out of people fighting over toilet paper. We had no idea what we were coming home to. But we got sold this idea that on the island of Java, there's a volcano with blue flames. And, you know, if you know me, photographer, adventurer, I was like, that sounds like my thing. So naturally, we did what all tourists do in Bali and we got scooters and we thought we could literally drive to Java on this scooter. Now, unbeknownst to us, that Google Maps lied to us. It said that the dam from our accommodation to the ferry across to Java was 3.5 hours. The actual reality was it was 9 hours. Add in a monsoon on top of it, it makes it a little bit more hairier on the road. And we didn't have the most powerful scooters. But rather than turn around and go back, we persevered. We got to the ferry at late at night and then we crossed over soaking wet after driving from middle of Bali up through Ubud.
I thought this was the short version, Carly. I thought we were doing the short version.
This was the short.
It's starting to get more and more detailed the deeper we go.
Look, you can't tell this story without the context. Anyway, we get to a really dodgy hotel to go have a shower. You go in there. It looks like I'm going to wake up with no kidney. So we decided not to go to sleep. I run into Java area to try and buy some clothes. Everything's Asian size. Nothing fits me. So I'm now wearing pants that look like little kids' pants. Anyway, we have to be at this volcano at 2 a.m. to start the hike up the top to go and see these bloody blue flames that everyone's told me is amazing. And there's this bright blue acid lake, right? Anyway, we start driving our scooter up this volcano. The scooters couldn't handle it because it's literally like a vertical incline. The scooters kept sliding down the mountain. My friend lost her phone, but that's all right. We kept going. Anyway, get to the top. We start our descent. It stinks of sulfur. I can barely breathe. I only have one lung. I find it very difficult. We get up to the top. It's completely clouded over. It's awful. Fucked. Anyway, we go down and beside me is a bunch of little Indonesian blokes carrying these freaking massive baskets of sulfur up this treacherous terrain that has no safety mechanisms whatsoever. It's literally just shards of rock everywhere. And you descend down into what can only be described as a stove. That's what it looked like, a stove. And these fucking blue flames is just the sulfur gas that has a light on it. It looks like someone's turned on their stove, right? This is why I sacrificed my life.
Right,
anyway.
So your problem with Bali is that you had retarded choices.
No, my problem with Bali
That's
is
what
it
I got from your
anyway,
whole story.
I'm not done. I just got to finish it. Anyway, come back down the mountain, grab myself a nashi pear, all beautifully packaged in a servo, no less. I didn't do the touristy thing. Anyway, I eat this pear. We have our long trip back to the Bali villa. Halfway through, I start feeling a little bit uneasy. I was like, my stomach is threatening some pyrotechnics, if you will. Make it back to the villa.
This is the real volcano in the story.
No, yeah, I think I know where this is going.
Yeah.
Get back to the villa, and what can only be described as my body tried to invert itself in both directions. Ended up falling asleep, having a hyper dream. I was hallucinating, woke up into what I thought was a pool of sweat. It was a pool of some other body excrement. I'll leave that to your imagination.
You got this from a pear.
All this from a pear. I got fucking typhoid, Avi. Typhoid from Bali. From Bali. That's what I got. Yeah. Typhoid.
How do you catch typhoid though? How's it?
It was because the pear had been washed in fucking excrement.
Okay, yeah.
E. coli. Yeah. Anyway, this is as Scott Morrison's decided he's closing down the border, and I have to get on a plane where they're checking your thermometer. So I get to the airport, buy a can of frozen Coke, put it on my head, trying to fool the thermometer. I get on. I literally fly from Bali to Australia in the toilet. I did not leave the toilet the entire flight. That's the story. That's why I hate Bali. Don't eat the pears. Fuck Bali.
It's funny because I have a similar. Yeah. Okay. So your problem is because I had a similar thing in Cambodia from salad because I was at the time I was doing a protein I was no carb diet And so I thought I was being good, and I didn't realize and I got salmonella and ended up in hospital in Cambodia. But guess what? The difference between you and me is I take personal responsibility, and I know it was my choices that got me there. You are blaming an entire country that is actually great and does really cheap tattoos, and two people can do it at the same time. Plus, they give you medications while you do it. You're blaming
because you're a little
them
bitch, Army.
your
Because you can't
choices.
handle a tattoo without some medicine. You pussy. Now you showed your real colors. You can't get a tattoo without having some kind of anesthetic.
No, so it's not. You can't say I can't get a tattoo. I've done all my tattoos except the one I got in Bali without it, and now it's like flying business class for the first time. Once you do it, you go, holy crap, I've been going through shit for years for nothing. Now it's so much cheaper and easier and better to be high in Bali while you get your tattoo for $400.
Hey, Rukshan, how you doing? We're just chilling.
I'm just understanding.
Rukshan, when was the last time
I've gotten the full appreciation of what the tangent section means for this show.
Do you understand why we have a song now?
I've seen couples getting divorced that have more functional communication than these two, right? Like.
What's wrong with
these two are just trying to outcompete each other, one up each other.
Yeah.
Harvey outed himself.
What are you talking about? I won. I didn't have to try.
All right, shall we move on?
You outed yourself. Anyway, all right. Let's fight about something realistic, and that is
talking about outing itself. The Liberal Party.
Apparently writing references for pedophiles. I mean, honestly.
Oh, look, one step at a time, Carly. One step at a time. Let's get there. Let's set the scene.
I have seen plot lines from Days of Our Lives and Bold and the Beautiful that were more straightforward than this. Like, this is ridiculous.
That is actually true.
All right, Topher, bring us up to speed. What happened?
Okay, so Moira Deeming managed to get pre-selected into a safe Liberal seat at the previous state election. And even she said to me at the time, I don't know how this happened. They mustn't have done their research very well. Hold that thought that maybe they didn't do their research on their candidates very well, because that's going to be really relevant in just a minute's time. That was her sentiment to me expressed back then. So then Moira Deeming goes about being Moira Deeming, exactly the person who she was before she got that job, standing up for the exact same things. The Liberal Party very quickly realized, hang on, we've got a real actual conservative on our hands over here. We don't want that in the Liberal Party. We are the pretend Conservative Party. And so they went to war against her, and a character assassination campaign began very early after her election. But it really kicked off in 2023 when she attended the Let Women Speak march with Posey Parker and a couple of others. Apologies, I don't remember the names of the other ladies involved there. Now, what this...
Rukshan was there.
Rukshan was there, okay. Now, what this was about was defending the right of biological women to have spaces to themselves without having to share them with people who have been men at any time in their lives. Space for women who have only ever been women. So that we don't have to get into the discussion of what is a woman. It's for women who have only ever been women. And apparently her attendance at this protest, at this rally, was the ultimate sin, because a couple of members of the Pajama Party Brigade showed up. You know, the guys who like to cosplay as these little hitties. They showed up in their pajamas and they did their little thing off to the side. The organizers didn't even know they were there until right at the very end, when I think word got to them. But the police kept them away and they just did their little sideshow, and that should have been that. But John Pasuto, the alleged leader, I don't think he's capable of leading anything. He's certainly not capable of leading a dog on a leash, let alone a political party. But the alleged leader of the Liberals at the time decided that this was the platform upon which he was going to destroy Moira Deeming. He defamed her, and I can say that he did that because the court agrees that he defamed her, alleging that she actually had ties with these neo-Nazis. And the Liberal Party suspended her membership. She sued him for defamation. Actually, the order of operations is that she threatened to sue him for defamation. She followed through on that threat when there was no apology forthcoming, and they suspended her membership. She won the defamation case. Rukshan or Avi, one of you two will know off the top of your head, what was the value of the payout of the award?
Is it 300?
2.3 million.
2.3.
Okay.
Sorry, 2.3.
We got some wildly different numbers. I thought it was in the ones. Anyway,
No,
it was a lot of money.
Was that the payout, or was that including legal costs?
That might be including legals.
Yeah, I think it
because
was.
I'm pretty sure it was 1 point something as damages, and then legals on top. Now, John Pizzuto, in order to fulfill that, would have had to have declared bankruptcy. That would have then meant that they would have had to have had a by-election in a seat that they were probably going to lose. And I covered all this in a video at the time. John Pizzuto should never have been where he was. He's a post turtle. One of those, you see a turtle sitting on top of a fence post. You don't know how he got there, but you know he didn't get there by himself, right? He's a post turtle. He didn't get there by himself. He was parachuted into that position. And they did not want to have a by-election in his seat. So the party raised the money, bailed him out so that he didn't have to declare bankruptcy, so that they wouldn't have to have a by-election, but they were still plotting how they were going to get rid of Moira Deeming. All of that, believe it or not, is just background to bring you up to now. So now they're going through pre-selection for the coming election, and Moira Deeming should, by rights, as a sitting MP, retain the spot that she already had. But they decided, they being the faceless men and the backroom party deal makers, decided that they wanted to get rid of her once and for all. And they did it using a guy called Dinesh. Sorry, I've got his name here. Yeah, pretty dodgy. They used a guy called Dinesh where is it? Here.
Show me the name. I'll give it a go.
Okay, Dinesh Gurisetti. That's relevant in just a minute. So they used a guy called Dinesh Gurisetti, and he had all the right credentials to be a modern Liberal Party MP. Firstly, he's from an immigrant background. Secondly, he's filthy rich. Thirdly, he proudly posted about getting both doses of Pfizer, just in case the first one didn't work properly. And what's interesting about this particular picture is that you won't be able to find it anymore. I have this picture courtesy of Carly Unfiltered, who you can find on Instagram. This is the other Carly that I mentioned earlier in the show.
Replacement Carly, yeah.
The backup Carly. You always need a spare Carly. They're notoriously unreliable. So this...
Does she do videos or something? Somebody was telling me about this person recently, I think. She does videos.
Yeah. She does some good stuff. So he has now scrubbed his social media and gotten rid of all of the pre-existing evidence. Now, this was the person that the Liberal Party decided was going to replace Moira Deeming. They did a bunch of branch stacking and some other backroom stuff to make sure that they tilted the scales in the favor of Dinesh over Moira Deeming. And as of about 36 hours ago, they had won. They successfully replaced Moira Deeming with Dinesh. Dinesh got the vote from the members through the usual processes. Democracy had won, and they'd gotten what they wanted. Small problem. This morning, well, actually last night, it began to unravel because we began to see things like this. I'm going to remove that one, and then I'm going to bring up a couple of other images from him, a bit of other relevant information. So we began to find out, for example, that he had actually, oops, that's the wrong one. He has had to pay a $25,000 fine for a lack of hygiene in one of the restaurants that he owns. Now, this is not something that happens lightly. This is something that happens after repeated breaches over an extended period of time. And I'm not going to make a big deal out of the fact that it was an Indian restaurant specifically, but it was Indian restaurant fined $25,000 for filthy, unsafe food. Of the 11 charges the restaurant owner pleaded guilty to, some violations had occurred for an extended period of time. Now, his defense is that he didn't run the restaurant, he only owned it. But as an owner of a restaurant, how can you be unaware or fail to fix violations that are taking place over an extended period of time?
Just
We're not done
that,
yet.
As the business owner, is your obligation to oversee things. And if you've got people cutting corners, it's likely because the business owner is refusing to pay them or the incentives are low. So
I think I'm just pissed off because I love my Indian food, and like when I read that story, it kind of ruined it for me because everybody talks about how dirty it is, and I'm like, no, it's just tasty. And now I'm like, damn, Dinesh.
I'm with you. I freaking love Indian food. I'm like, please don't ruin it.
We are still only getting warmed up. I know I've been talking for a while, but guys, this is a big story. I want to set the full scene for you. And I'm going to grift a little bit while I do it, because in my book, Good People Break Bad Laws, I talk about the backroom power brokers in politics. Dinesh Gurisetti has ambitions of being a backroom power broker in the Liberal Party. And we know this because it's a matter of public record. He, in fact, challenged Jeff Kennett for the presidency of the Liberal Party. Why did he challenge Jeff Kennett? Well, he said that Indians were being discriminated against because they were being removed from the membership rolls. Why were Indians being removed from the membership rolls? Well, we are led to believe by the Court of Mentha report that it was because Dinesh Gurisetti had played a part in registering fake members, people who either did not know that they were members or had not paid their own membership, which is in contravention of the law. And so in response to this report by Court of Mentha, the Liberal Party were removing members who should not have been there. This is called branch stacking. And Dinesh Gurisetti was right at the center of it. That was what we knew last night. Then we woke up this morning and it just got delicious. It was so good. I mean, talk about waking up happy. Talking about a morning.
I thought it was pretty delicious at the Indian food part, but okay, let's go on. Let's hear what your delicious version is. What's your dessert?
I should have it here. You've got the picture, I think, there, Carly. The headline that it turns out he wrote a character reference for a man who was convicted of being a, what's that file format? It's not a Word document. That's right, a PDF file. He wrote a character. This is just 2 years ago. He wrote this character reference.
Now, I didn't know that he was convicted.
Convicted.
He had pled guilty. He was writing the man a character reference after he pled guilty to the charges.
And what was do we see his character reference? Do we have?
I have it. I have his. I can read it out in a minute, but I've been talking for a long time already. I want to take you guys a chance, but like, there's more. There's more here. This is the craziest story.
Right, hold on. Can we get two things?
There's more. Where are the steak knives?
The two things that I want, and you don't have to do it after you finish telling, but I want to know what he actually pled. What was the crime? Do we know the details of the actual crime? And secondly, we want to hear the character reference. What did he say about him?
Okay, I have to be very careful which words I use when discussing the crime because I'll set off the filters. So I'm going to talk a little bit circumspectly. But he pled guilty to grooming a 15-year-old through a messenger service, arranging to meet with her and meeting with her, having sent her a picture of his via a carriage service, and then assaulting her in the manner which you would expect given the arrangement that had been made. So this is a pretty full-on level of non-Word document PDF file activity, and he had pled guilty. Now, the fact that he had pled guilty is super relevant because the next twist in this tale is that the Liberal Party came out and said he's offered to withdraw his candidacy and we have accepted his withdrawal of his candidacy. He's no longer going to stand for the Liberal Party. And that you would think makes sense. I mean, the question you would ask, though, is that, how did he get through vetting in the first place? Now, remember, Moira said to me early in her career, she's like, I don't know how they didn't figure out who I am. I'm amazed I got in. Who vetted me? Well, clearly they didn't vet well enough. This is the next twist in the tale. Dinesh denies ever withdrawing from his nomination for the upper house ticket. He wants the Liberal Party to still put him in the #1 spot in that region. And his argument is that other high-profile Liberal Party figures have given character references to convicted criminals before, and so it really shouldn't be used against him. Oh, and by the way, I love this detail. He didn't really know the details of the crime of which the person he was giving the character reference for had pled guilty to. That's literally what he said. In my defense, I didn't know what it was that he was accused of in detail, right? Now, think about this. He has to write a statutory declaration to the court as a character reference. In that statutory declaration, he has to state that he's aware of the charges. So either he lied on his statutory declaration because he wasn't actually aware of the charges, or he's just lied to the Australian public and to the Liberal Party, claiming that he was not aware of the details.
If he lied to the Australian public and the Liberal Party, he probably belongs in the Liberal Party. Let's just be
touche, Avi.
Now, I will say this document is a matter of public record. I won't say how I got a hold of it, but it is very findable if you search his name on the Austlii website because it is a matter of court record. I have redacted his address from the screen. The copy I have comes directly from the Austlii website. It does not have his address redacted. Of course, I presume it's out of date.
Can you read it to us?
But let's have a read, shall we? Your Honour, my name is Mr. Dinesh Gurisetti of such and such address. I have known Mr. Kashyap Patel of 23, etc. That was another. I should have redacted that address as well. External dispute case manager for nearly 4 years. He is a good friend of mine. I understand that Mr. Kashyap Patel has to attend court about child grooming and a certain kind of assault charges. He is very upset about. Sorry.
You're reading word for word, so you're reading him saying that.
Correct. I am quoting directly. This is what he wrote to the court. He is very upset about the charges, and I truly believe he's extremely sorry to the complainant for what he has done. So he knows he's pled guilty, right? This is the thing. Think about his denial now. He's saying in this, he knows the dude pled guilty. My understanding of his personal life is he is a very humble and a family-oriented person. He has family with young children, and he also has elderly parents living with him for quite some time. He is a primary breadwinner in the family and supports his parents. He is a person who is very respectful, helpful, and always ready to take feedback when provided. I believe during COVID-19 pandemic, while we were under lockdown, he was not coping very well mentally. He is a person who loves to meet friends and family in person, and due to lockdown could not meet them. I believe it may have put a lot of stress and anxiety on his personal life, which have put him in this issue. From what I gathered and the years I know him, the issue was completely outside of his usual character. Even though he has been charged, I would continue to trust him as my friend. Finally, I can say that in all the time I've known him, Mr. Kashyap Patel has been a decent, hardworking and trustworthy person. I believe any behavior he displayed that caused him to be charged with child grooming and assault was a one-off event. I'm happy to discuss the references further and can be contacted.
Imagine writing that. Forget about denying it after. Imagine writing a character reference to someone where you actually have to put your name to it, and you go, I know this guy is a really good guy, and I know it's like the fact that he's had to spell out who has been charged for grooming and sexual offenses against a minor, and put your name to that and sign it.
And then you put your hand up to run for public office. Like, think about just how far out of touch with reality you have to be, even just to take that step, let alone now to be saying, no, I'm not withdrawing my application. You should stick with me. I'm the better choice. The person, get this, understand what he's saying and understand what the Liberal Party did when they put him forward. They said that a person who went into bat for child predators is preferable within the modern Victorian Liberal Party to a woman who went into bat for women. That's literally the trade-off they made. And they were proud of it until it blew up in their faces.
You want to know the plot twist? His friend that abused the child is running for the Greens.
Are you serious?
No, I just made that up.
Okay.
I mean,
it's possible.
It's not outside the realm of possibility.
I'm sorry that my joke is too close to reality.
No, but I was just reading the article. So he's saying that because John Howard and Tony Abbott wrote references for Cardinal George Pell, who was also
but he was never
charges.
But he was never convicted.
He was convicted, and then it was overturned.
And it was overturned an appeal. So I don't know when they wrote the references, but he's saying that's happened within the Liberal Party before. And
but also, can I just say that using that as a cop out, regardless of whether or not Tony Abbott and that did that, using that as your excuse, like, who is advising these people? Who in the Liberal Party is sitting there going,
I must say though, the Liberal Party, Tony Abbott and John Howard and so forth, even when George Pell was convicted and in jail waiting appeal, did defend him publicly, despite being...
No, what's the big difference? Is they said that it wasn't true. They never believed it to be true.
That's true. That's a good point.
That's a good point. I know that this happened, but the guy's a good guy. Yeah. That's very different.
That's look, it's only one 15-year-old, guys. It's only one 15-year-old. Like, it's just an anomaly. It's not like he has a hard drive.
It's obviously it's all sick and twisted. I'm talking about the political side of it from the Liberal Party, because obviously they're all over the place. Their vetting is not that great.
Yeah.
Are you feeling all right?
Why?
Because you just made a really good point, and I'm a bit thrown. Are you okay?
No. I was like, I think I caught whatever you got, or maybe even Carlz.
You don't want what Topher has, bro.
No, trust me, you do not. Now, just to finish all of this out, this is Dinesh Gurisetti's I believe this is his Facebook page right now. No posts available, everything deleted, everything scrubbed. Previously, he'd been banging on about how much he loved the Indian community and everything else, which is fine. You're entitled to do that. He'd obviously banged on about COVID and getting double jabbed, and he's got photos of himself wearing masks. All of that suddenly he doesn't want out in the public domain. He suddenly has felt the need to try and remove a bunch of his past from
Why
public
do these
prime.
people not consider this before? Why are you always scrubbing after the fact? Like, if you're going to go for parliament, wouldn't that be the first thing you do? Oh, shit, let's scrub some questionable shit off the internet.
I don't think they realized the backlash that was going to come from the fact.
I think that's what
like, how did you not see it coming?
You saw the video, right? When they came out after winning,
So
they're all celebrating, high-fiving each other.
the Indians.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
the whole as soon as I saw that, I'm watching that and I'm thinking that's a branch stack. Like, you can't compete with that. You just bring your family, get them. To join the branch.
There are multiple things going on here, though, isn't there, Topher? Like, within some of these suburbs, like the western suburbs, for instance, there is actually a demographic shift. And there's also a line of thought within the Liberal Party that to compete with, the Labour Party, for instance, who they openly run diversity hires, for instance, let's just say.
Yeah.
And you kind of have to compete with that by doing almost the same thing. And then, these kind of individuals, and there's a lot of these kind of characters now within politics, even in the Liberal Party, especially from the Indian and Chinese community, I know for sure, that are working to take, parts of this party. And this is one massive example of that and how influential they actually are to this level, because there's no way that this guy matches up with the caliber of someone like Moira Deeming.
No,
not at all.
Matter. Political world,
But he's got a lot of money.
Political world view wouldn't even. It would not be a liberal. He would not be a liberal. He would not be a conservative.
No. But also, if that's authentic, Rukshan, then that's just the democratic process at work. The people that get involved have the say. And I've been saying, I think most of us have been saying at various points, like, people, please get involved. Like, you don't realize what a small number of Australians are actually running these parties in the back end. And if more people get involved, we can really, make a bit of a change here. Where it runs into trouble.
This guy came to Australia in 2001. And he's challenging Jeff Kennett for the presidency of the Liberal Party. Like, you have to understand what is happening when you hear something like this. Like,
the important detail here is that they're not actually doing it through genuine democratic processes. They're recruiting people, registering on their behalf, paying their membership for them, which is explicitly illegal, and then essentially using that as a voting block that simply they've bought and paid for. Now, this is a well understood problem. Branch stacking is the term we have for it. This is a well understood problem. And so, for example, when Alex Antic became the lead Senate candidate in South Australia, he went on a big recruitment drive into the South Australian branches. And because it was him doing the recruiting, the people he was recruiting were very loyal to him. And he holds a very strong position at the top of the South Australian Liberal Party Senate ticket. Excuse me. In contrast, something like Jared Rennick, he got in one of the spots on the Queensland ticket at the time, and he didn't run the same kind of a program, didn't build that kind of support within the membership, and then he was put into an unwinnable position on the Queensland Senate ticket for the Liberal Party, and then, of course, he didn't get his seat, and now he's formed his own party. The contrast between those two, that's a difference of legitimate support building and then failing to do legitimate support building within your own party. What Dinesh is doing is illegitimate support building. He's simply recruiting people saying, hey, I just need you to sign this piece of paper. Don't worry about the money. I'll pay it for you. And then he's using those votes that exist really on paper. These aren't people who are actually engaged in the democratic process. Yeah. He's just gaming a system. And that's
saying that based on the allegations from that report.
From the Court of Mentor report, the fact that they removed 160 people out of the Liberal Party back then, specifically because they could not legally keep them on. If they'd kept them on the books, the party itself would have been breaking the law.
I think there's something to be said here as well. Like, we talk about, I know there's a lot of commentary around immigration and them not assimilating. This is a perfect example of that. This is a democratic country where we have democratic processes that work when they're used correctly. But when you have someone who's only been here 4 years, who has found out a loophole and then has used that to his advantage to then win pre-selection, but also try and challenge Jeff Kennett, who's part of the blue chip part of the Liberal Party, it just goes to show you that there's people who are migrating here who I'm going to say it, this God help me, who have bad intentions when it comes to this country. They're not coming here because they want to be part of Australia. They're coming here because they want to change things. I mean, we're seeing similar situations playing out in the UK, where you got people coming here who are going to either use and abuse our systems. We've seen that in the US with the Somali community and the rorting that's happening there that's been uncovered by Nick Shirley. But we're also seeing it here. I mean, Drew Pavlo's starting to showcase instigations of fraud with the NDIS. But this here, branch stacking, whether he did it kind of legally or kind of not legally, it goes against the democratic process. It needs to be called out. And the fact that the Liberal Party allowed him firstly to get through and now basically win pre-selection.
And they were, I think they were cheering him on because they were. They were so tunnel vision at getting rid of Moira that they even lost sight of that. But just to be the thing I hear is maybe you can argue in his defense that is the most Australian thing to do, because branch stacking has been around a long time and people have been Aussies have been, different factions of the Liberal Party have been branch stacking for a long time. So maybe he's too Australian for us, so we shouldn't let him.
Look, you're probably not wrong. My question is, what happens from here? We've just had the South Australian election. We saw One Nation beat beat the Liberal Party in the South Australian state election in terms of lower house votes and upper house votes. It didn't translate into more lower house seats. People are upset about that. They're saying, it has to be rigged, blah, blah, blah. No, it's because of how preferences work, but also because of distribution of those votes matters. If you have very broad support, you could get 20% in every single seat and win none of them if you just have 20% in every seat. It's where you have high support in individual seats that you win. And One Nation obviously had broad support, but not specific support. But we've seen them take lower house seats for the first time this century. And they're polling extremely well in Victoria, depending on which poll you look at. They're already potentially ahead of the Liberal Party, certainly competitive alongside the Liberal and Labor parties. There's no question about that. Now, with this, do you guys think that this is going to move the needle further, or has everyone that's going to move already moved?
I think, people who are sitting on the fence maybe about the Liberal Party, like you look at someone like Moira Deeming and you think there's still hope for the party, for instance.
Sure.
Someone that represents some of those more liberal values that we've kind of associated with conservatism, even standing up for things that a lot of the Liberal Party seem to be afraid of talking about. Moira Deeming was happy to give those issues a voice. Not even if it made a difference, just to actually talk about those issues, right? Because we want our politicians to engage in some of these conversations. And Moira Deeming was someone that was willing to do that. So I think people who are on the fence maybe on the Liberal Party might look at someone like One Nation now, not even as a protest vote, more so as a party that they're seeing growing, they're seeing accommodating of their views and their values, and seeing as someone that will go in there and fight for them. Whereas the Liberal Party, it still looks like they're playing just, uni-party politics and, trying to just keep the thing that they've had for decades and decades and not really giving a stuff about the way that voters are thinking. So I definitely think it pushes people towards looking at options like One Nation for sure. If you're a Liberal. Now, if you're in Labor and the Greens, you're laughing at all of this and just saying what a mess.
Can I read a comment I got on a reel I put up today? So I was discussing this particularly, but not just Moira Deeming, just the political pool at large and how, there's no incentive for people with good character to get into politics. And basically, 2 weeks ago, I had a huge influx of following of people who were interested in fashion. And obviously they're not familiar with who I am and what my politics are, because judging by the reaction I've gotten to this reel today, I just want to read out one particular comment by someone who's obviously progressively left. And her comment is, the reaction to Moira Deeming's departure says everything about the state of the Liberal Party. This isn't about one individual. It's about the alliances that have formed around her, a regressive, inward-looking faction more interested in culture wars and internal battles than governing a modern Australia. Australians have already made clear at the ballot box that this kind of politics does not resonate, and until the party breaks from that influence, it won't rebuild credibility. It will continue to drift further away. Now, I responded with this. I'd argue with the rapid increase in support for One Nation, and particularly those same people now expressing support for Deming, the argument is missing a considerable key demographic. I, for one, support the right for women to speak openly and politically without being accused of being a Nazi, for women to advocate for women's spaces, and I think the power brokers of the Liberal Party tried everything to support a weak, pathetic man like Prosciutto over a woman with principles that speaks volumes. And then this person's written back, Framing this as a free speech issue misses the broader point. Of course, women should be able to speak openly. That isn't the question. What is the question is the kind of politics being amplified by Deeming and her supporters and the alliances that have formed around it. Much of this has been presented as women's right, but in reality is often functioned as an anti-trans politics under a different label. The Deming-Prosciutto conflict also became a proxy for a deeper internal struggle, one that ultimately strengthened the more hardline faction within the party at the expense of the more moderate centre. Voters are not naive. They can see the distinction, and recent elections suggest there is limited appetite for it beyond a very specific basis. It also speaks volumes for the strong Christian contingent of the Liberal Party who are dated, and this is the reason they've lost support in the educated constituencies of Kooyong and other inner city urban seats.
Word salad, I'm going to sleep.
On your Instagram?
Say that again?
Sorry?
Yeah.
This is on Instagram. Do you know how to block people?
Well, the reason I bring this up is, okay, so we've tapped into a part of the internet that I don't often delve into. It's like that dark, shadowy place from The Lion King. And the comment this person's making, I checked who they are. This person writes for Marie Claire magazine, which is very progressive. It's a fashion magazine. And this is important, right? Because we're talking about Moira Deeming, the four of us talking about her as a women's rights advocate. Well, now we have a person who writes about women's rights in a mainstream publication in Marie Claire. This person's clearly a journalist. And she's arguing that Moira Deeming is actually regressive. She's part of like the trad wife movement, the regression of women back to conservative politics. Now, as I've expressed multiple times on this podcast, I'm not Christian in the sense of a practicing Christian. I have Christian values. I grew up in the Catholic school system. I understand the Bible inside out. I don't practice it. What I get really frustrated about with this growing progressive group of women, the feminists, if you will, is that women like me who speak up with common sense, with somewhat the Judeo-Christian values. I'm not going to call myself a conservative because I'm not conservative in many ways, but these people would call me conservative, that we aren't allowed to speak because we are not with the ideology of the day. And I made the point I didn't read out my full comment, but I made the point that I'm a free speech absolutist. I would rather know where all the people on the fringe are and hear their bad ideas so that we can shut them down in public, as opposed to expelling them to the dark fringes of the internet where they go and actively recruit, like all the neo-Nazis will be doing right now, right? The further you push people to the fringe, the more powerful they become. They recruit people because it becomes kind of cool to be part of this edge group, right? And so we need to combat these people. This is someone who's writing for a mainstream publication. She's a feminist. She's a women's right advocate. And she sees people like Moira Deeming as a threat.
Sure. Yes and no, Carly. Yeah, the culture war, all that. Okay, yes, we need to be engaged with that. But we also need to accept that a new generation of bitter clingers is being born, and we're never going to shift them. And you talk about, we need to reach their audience. They're influencing people. Okay, that's true up to a point. But actually, one of the strongest arguments we can make against them is to actually just live better. And I'm loving watching so many women rejecting feminism, all the toxic stuff that's come with that, the rejection of femininity that's come with that, the rejection of their own identity, their own power, their own happiness in many cases, and they're actually just choosing to get out there and live. This is why the feminists are terrified of the trad wife movement. They're terrified of women that actually just want to raise children, have a happy home. They may work, they may not, but actually being married and having kids is really important to them, and they invest in those things, and it makes them really happy. That's what terrifies the feminists, not someone arguing with them in the comments so much. Now, I'm not saying don't do it, but I wouldn't get too hung up, if I were you, on the need to combat these people. Live better than these people. Keep doing what you're... The reason they're angry is because it's not working, and they're looking at people like you going, why can't you be miserable like me?
Am I the only one that's bothered by his screen turning off in middle?
Yeah, it's our cue to wind up. It turns off after 2 hours, and it's.
I want to ask you. I was actually talking to Rukshan today. I was thinking about redoing my studio with a
screen behind you,
screen in the back. It's so much easier. But now look at
you.
We've
got the double RV going on here. We've got old RV screen and then new RV.
I think the best way to improve your set, RV, would be if you could just turn off all of the lights. Every single one of them. I think it'd be great.
Hey Siri, lights off.
That's a part of Rukshan's technical work there.
Hey Siri,
I
lights on.
Can I touch on this
That's
point from
fine.
Melissa? Melissa's an OG Oddie, and she makes a great point because I'm in the same camp as her, right? You guys all have dicks, right? I assume. As the token woman
Why would
here,
you
who is
assume?
oh, well, I made that terrible mistake. I'm sorry, Avi. It would make sense that you don't have one. No. Enough. I don't want to know if you're a eunuch. I don't know if you've been. Anyway, enough.
Mate, you're
Okay.
disgusted by this conversation after what you told us about Bali, mate. All right.
To be fair, but can we bring back Melissa's comment? I lost it. She was talking about she's
sorry.
not a trad wife and she's not a feminist. Where the hell does she fit? I would say this as well. Like, I see a lot of the trad wife comments now, and I also see like the, for lack of a better word, the woke right. I don't belong in that faction either. I think there's a large group of people, women particularly, who feel alienated by both. Like I have more conservative views, I guess I could say, but I don't want children. I don't want to be a trad wife. I like very much that I'm equal in my relationship and that, I work and I do all those things. But having said that, I understand the importance of having children. I want people to have kids. It was just never an option for me. I never wanted them. But then on the other side, I see all this pro-feminist girl boss, fuck having kids and all this sort of stuff. And it makes me incredibly sad. But like, where do I sit? There seems to be no middle ground in anything these days. Everything is extreme. And I just don't know.
I think the internet's extreme. Like, I don't know. I try to gauge it all the time. I'm not sure. Clearly the extremes have grown on all sides. Or they've become more brazen and more out there, and maybe since the internet's a bit freer, so we're just hearing from them more, or they're recruiting more. I feel like they are recruiting more. However, there is like, it's the thing of going outside and touching grass and talking to regular people on 100%. The street. I don't get that. There definitely is, like, as being me, like, there is three large groups, growing groups. I would argue that don't particularly like me just for what I happen to be. You got your far left, your far right, the group that you were just talking about, and then your really big chunk of the Islamic community, or the probably a big chunk of it, whatever. But especially the left and the right, online, and actually the Islamic community, online, they're very powerful at the moment. So like, as soon as you write something, the comments are just, it feels like bots sometimes, but I don't even know if it is bots. I think there are a lot of them, and now they are free to just spew whatever they think. Some people have been recruited, but I don't know if in the real world it's as hectic as that. And I think if you look at American politics, you get to see it. And I think, I think even the elections here kind of prove that in reality, like the rise of One Nation, the rise of Pauline Hanson, in the face of, if you remember a couple of years ago, there was, just after October 7, there was a controversy within the One Nation Party when Pauline was wearing the Israeli flag into Parliament. There was a massive backlash within One Nation itself, the loudest people in the party, and people were talking about it like this was the end of the party. And what happened since then? Like, they were literally talking about this is going to destroy the party. And I wasn't sure. I was sitting back because I'm often on the receiving end of all that hate, that sometimes it feels a lot bigger than it is. And online, it's certainly bigger. But in reality, what I watched happen with One Nation following to that was they've blown up in the polls. They've surged everywhere. And not only in the polls, because on the polls after COVID, I think they did surge a bit, but didn't translate. Now we're seeing it actually translate to voting, which to me tells me that it's a lot more noise than it is real. I walk down the street every day and I meet your average Aussie, and they're walking up and they're not talking to me like anonymous people are online in my comment section. Then am I saying that it doesn't happen? Am I saying that that I haven't been attacked more since the last couple of years, when people suddenly are all experts on the war in the Middle East, or the wars in the Middle East, or on Israel, or on Jews, or whatever? It is. I am seeing it more in reality, but it is not as magnified as it is online. And you see that also in some of the primaries in America. You see it. You got, some of the loudest, craziest voices online that run and look like they, if you're going to compare the likes between them and their opponents, like the ones that say the most outrageous, crazy shit, they're not getting in. And it's the actual more sensible candidates that seem to be winning.
Can I jump in? Because I involuntarily did an experiment that very much corroborated what you're saying. Maybe they are expanding, but they are nothing like as big as they make themselves appear online. So you remember when the the round of rallies that the NSN were directly trying to, so they were kind of right in there trying to help organize, right? All right. So I've never burnt a bridge in 17 years of public commentary. I've never burnt a bridge until that time. I decided to keep my mouth shut about those protests because I thought, you know what, even if the NSN are trying to, not even infiltrate, if they're actually behind organizing them, which I already knew they were, if they just get swamped by a huge number of people, then it's just not going to matter. It's not going to be relevant. So I'm not going to speak out against these rallies. Then they used my face and a video clip of me with my face and my voice speaking at an anti-lockdown rally as part of their promo material. And I'm like, well, and that got sent to me by my niece up in Queensland. It had been fed to her via her feed. I'm like, sorry, I have to go nuclear now. So this is the one and only bridge that I've ever just gone and gleefully burned. And I fucking burned that thing down. I absolutely destroyed and ended any possible association with those people on purpose, and gleefully so. Now, what happened, of course, was then we had the Noticer News and all the kind of the fashion newspapers and all the fashion influencers coming out at me. And it was fun. That was, playing whack-a-mole in the comments. It was great. Then they did a cancel Topher campaign. And they were really super serious about it. They're like, okay, we're all ditching all of Topher's social media accounts. And that was great because it gave me a metric. I now had a metric with which to measure their influence. They told everybody to, if they were seen following my accounts, this and that, then they were not true to the cause and blah, blah, blah. I don't know, they carried on. Grand total, if you add it up across all of my...
one thing I agree with them on. I think it's important to say.
I took their advice. I actually took their advice.
Good on you, Richard. Me too.
Wow. It was the brown people that made the white fash seem like they had power. So it was the grand total, the additional unfollows off all of my social media accounts combined over the 3 days that they ran that campaign, less than 200 people. Combined across all. So real people, 150, maybe only 100 actual human beings that were in all of the noise and fury in the Noticer, across all their social media.
Look at Nick Fuentes, who is one of the biggest, he's one of the largest kind of neo-Nazi influencers, whatever you want to call them. I don't know. They hate when you call them what they are. So I don't know what to call them. Whatever you want to call them. He campaigned in the lead up to the election with Donald Trump in the last election. He campaigned against Trump, starting literally was organizing those groypers to go to different things to physically campaign against him, and Trump won the popular vote, and it showed how irrelevant. I know he tried to walk it back once he realized how irrelevant he was. I think that they have a bit more relevance now than they did right before that election, but I still stand by the fact that they are a lot louder online because they're also amplified by, I know people call them bots again. I don't necessarily think it's bots. And I think this is what Elon Musk at the moment is trying to overcome. It's the massive army of Pakistani Muslims that hate Jews. They just hate Jews. And so all of a sudden, Candace Owens and Nick Fuentes and Ian Carroll, like all of them, all of a sudden, by default have 10,000 likes because it's actual Jew haters that are in a country that it's irrelevant to the actual practical thing of the day. And it's like, the war in Iran right now. These guys are all campaigning, Tucker Carlson, Candace Owens, Megyn Kelly. These are some of the biggest names that were part of the conservative thing. And that were part of so-called MAGA, they're campaigning their hardest against it and against almost Trump without saying Trump. But then when you look at polling within MAGA, right now at this point, they're still supporting him in his war. So it's actually, again, more proof. Now, I'm not going to be delusional about it. It could change. And I do see a trajectory in which the world is not going to a good place. And I don't know what the answer is. I think it's just normal people getting together and actually, and people, the commentators, influencers, whatever you want to call them, that are noticing the notices, they should look at people like Pauline Hanson and Trump in that same vein and be inspired that you can actually stand for what you know to be right and realize, it might cost you the 200 followers that Topher lost. But in the long run, I think that, because to these people, to a lot of people, your audience is important. That's your job. That's your bread and butter. So you don't want to lose them over something that you think, okay, it's not necessarily affecting me. But if you look at in the long run, I think the audience overall respect consistency, and they see integrity, and they see people that are real and that won't just be audience captured and will actually stand for what is right. And I think in the long run, that is our only saving grace. It's and for now, I'm gonna believe in society to get behind those people because they are.
Yeah.
Can we touch on that? You've mentioned Candace Owens. Like, have you guys seen today? I think it was yesterday. Sorry, she started going for Nick Shirley. Like,
oh, yeah.
I just want to touch on what you were saying, Artie. I mean, like, I to be fair, there was some time where I quite liked Candace. I read her book and I thought she made some really good points. I thought some of the documentaries she did under the Daily Wire are really good. Tucker Carlson, I used to watch him. Megan Kelly, I used to watch her. I don't know what it is. Is it audience capture? Is it, you're too tunnel vision that you start to, I don't know, deprive yourself of oxygen and you get too far down the rabbit holes. But I mean, seeing someone like Nick Shirley popping up overnight, doing what he did, exposing what he did, and now Candace Owens is questioning it. You've got to ask yourself, like, what is the goal here? I mean, I try and get in the heads of these people. Tucker Carlson, I don't understand it. Megan Kelly, I don't understand it.
I think they're all different. I personally, I feel like they've all got different. They might have overlapping slight reason, and I think it's like sometimes it's a few things playing in at once. I think if you look at Candace Owens, it's what do they say about a scorn of a woman?
Hell have their fury like a woman scorned.
Yeah, so I feel like that's how it started. She got ditched by a Jew, and so then she got Jew derangement syndrome. And then I feel like she kind of convinced herself at half of it. There's a lot of it that she knows clearly, like either she's insane or she knows what she's doing.
Well,
I think
she's in too deep now. Like all of them are in too
Yeah,
deep. Like
well,
it's really hard to walk back the stuff they've said and done.
whether she knows she's lying about it or she's just convincing herself because she's in too deep, I don't know.
I think it was Milk TV. They posted a compilation of her saying, "We're getting close, guys. We're getting close, guys." Like about the whole Charlie Kirk.
TV. He's the best. He's so
and like
good.
It wasn't just once or twice. It was like, and it had the dates of every video. And it was almost like 40, 50 kind of compilations coming together saying, we're getting close, guys. We're getting close, guys. You got to wonder, her audience is quite substantial. Surely they're not watching this going, oh, yeah, we're close now. You know what I mean? Like, it's getting ridiculous.
Dude, you see her speech at the Catholics for Catholics or whatever that event that they did, which was all that kind of crowd. And I don't think it was a Milk Bar TV. It might have been somebody else that kind of copied that style, but they put a counter of how many times at her in her speech, at this Catholics for Catholics thing, did she mention God or me and I? And you know how many times she mentioned herself, like she said me or I? All right, let's start with
I don't know, but I would imagine it's a lot.
Which one do you want to start with? She said me and I 350 times. She said God 15. And you're like,
how long was she talking for?
7 minutes. No, I don't know.
Hey guys, sorry to interrupt. Sorry to interrupt, guys, but I actually have to log off to go do something.
Yeah, I was trying to prompt you earlier, Carly. Rukshan's falling asleep, and we need to finish.
No, I actually have to go do something. That's why it just came up.
All right,
it's all right.
We need one up anyway.
I didn't think Uber started at 9:30. That's a weird time.
I was going to go sign up to the Liberal Party in the Western suburbs and run for
there's an open seat. Just before you go, prediction is Moira going to run? Because I'm actually hoping she just goes with One Nation. I don't know. Maybe that's just me being petty and
I think the Libertarians are trying to recruit her.
I love the Libertarians in Victoria, but I just think One Nation.
Can I make a probably a slightly disappointing comment on that from a lot of people's perspective? We all want Moira to run. I would love to see her run for One Nation. I am a libertarian, and I love the Libertarian Party, especially in Victoria. But I think One Nation have the wind at their back. But can we just pause for a moment and remember, and I know you will remember, but can we bring to front of mind that Moira Deeming is a human being, and her husband and her kids and herself have been through absolute hell. I'm talking full-on abusive
Rukshan,
relationship.
you didn't even say goodbye to him.
Rukshan's bailed. Yeah, he did. That she has essentially been trapped in an abusive relationship with the Liberal Party for a couple of years now. They have put her and her entire family through the absolute ringer. I would not blame her in the slightest if she just walked away from politics and decided to go and try and find a quiet life somewhere. I think that is entirely within her rights. She owes us nothing. She has stood so tall under so much. What do I hope for? I hope she turns her back on the Liberal Party, says, screw you guys, you've screwed me one last time, goes and signs up and starts wearing orange and absolutely crushes them in the coming state election. That's what I hope for. But she is within her rights to never come back into public life again.
Yeah, I agree with that. Well, I think we should wrap it up, guys. But Avi, are you going to stay whilst we do our quintessential grift?
Oh yeah, we got a grift. You'll get to grift too. It's all right. You'll get your turn.
We get a chance to grift. I'm going first.
Carl, you first. Grift away.
All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to put the screen on me. How's that? Look at that. Oh, God, I'm pretty. No, I'm joking. Guys, if you haven't heard yet, I am doing my second round of the masterclass, AI Advantage. So anyone that's interested in all the AI tech, as you guys know, this was part of my master's. We are running round 2. And what I am doing is setting up an online community. In there is a extensive library of ready-to-go prompts for all the large language learning models, all the image gens. We're going to be learning all how to use them, not just like what they are, how to actually apply them to your everyday work or your life. You can do everything you can ever imagine with the large language learning models. We're going to go through that in the masterclass. You get the ebook for free. If you want a physical copy, you have to pay for the physical copy. But if you want to do that, it is on carlzjsoda.com. It's $99. Last time it'll be $99. It will be going up after that. So jump on. We start April 9th.
All right, good grifting.
What was that?
Avi, what's your grift? Come on, tell us how we can spend money with you.
I'm usually really prepared for these. I didn't know there was a whole grifting segment. What's going on?
So we've got a dedicated segment for it now.
On. How do I put Avi big? I don't know what I'm doing.
You move him over there, and then you do that.
This is a question I've been
Avi,
asking
it's all
my
on you.
whole
Go.
life. How do I make Avi big?
Yeah.
Guys, go to followrv.com. You can see all my links there. Yeah.
Have you got some sweet merch, Avi? Like, tell us. Have you got a book we can buy? Fuck.
Ben, this is the book.
Which you were meant to give me at the live show. Are you going to make me pay for it?
Yeah. Actually, a good read.
Did I not give you a copy?
No, you bastard. No.
I ran out of your live show. No, I've got a copy for you. Maybe I can give you this one.
I want to read your book. I love reading people's books.
Yeah, you can get my book. So you can go to followrv.com or go to rebelfromthestart.com, get the book. But make sure to give me 5 stars. Help me against these left. Topher left me like 10 1-star reviews. It's actually it's got good one. It had 1 star on the first day.
I thought I chose my secret names really well. I didn't think you'd realize that was me.
Avi, how is your Grace Tame website going?
It's actually well, every time she speaks up, she helps generate a lot of traffic to her.
So do you know the story?
No.
Well,
Avi, tell us the story.
So Grace Tame just the other week when she did that little supporting the Intifada or whatever, globalize the Intifada from Gardigal to Gaza, globalize the Intifada.
What's the URL?
Yeah, so then I bought and then I bought her. So I bought gracetame.com because I realized she didn't have that one. She had gracetame.com. And I've got it going. So gracetame.com goes to a petition to strip her of the Australian of the Year and to charge her for incitement to violence. And it's got almost 40,000 signatures on it. So every time she speaks up, we just do an update and we fire it up again. And I just love the fact that there you go. That's gracetame.com. Guys, go in there, sign and
Has she
share the
tried to
page.
get you to take it down or anything?
No, not yet. I wonder. I don't.
Sensational.
There's a thing about getting your own ones back, but I'm not sure that she would qualify on this one because it's specifically about her.
Well, she's
But I
got
will
no
fight
money
it.
now
We'll
because
fight it.
she's
Yes,
lost
we
all
don't
those
know.
speaking gigs.
Although she got a new one, the of course the Victorian Writers Festival or something. That's
yeah.
you know, they've taken on that terrorist and her.
Yes. All
All
right.
right, we've got to round up. I need to
Topher,
check.
tell
Thanks
them
for having
about
me on
Topher.
tonight.
Avi,
Don't leave.
thank you. Quick grift, topherfield.com. You're going to find a full range of t-shirts, hoodies, my best-selling books. I've written 2. Avi's only written 1, so I'm twice as smart as him. There's also the DVD documentary Battleground Melbourne, of which I had a copy lying around, but I don't anymore. You can watch that for free. Go to topherfield.com, click the documentary tab. It's there for free. You can watch the whole thing. You don't even have to give me your email address, but if you want a copy to put on the shelf to loan out, or you want the nice little 16-page booklet that comes with it, you got to buy the DVD for that, and that's available on the shop. But also check out the Getting Your Head in the Game Masterclass. The first session has happened. You can watch that as a replay immediately. And then there are 7 more sessions, 1 per month to come. That's the 2026 Getting Your Head in the Game Masterclass. Check that out. And everything you buy, of course, is going to help me to keep annoying Carly. So do make sure you get behind a noble cause.
I would buy your DVD. I just would need to buy a DVD player then.
I've
There
said the
is
same
that.
thing.
Yeah, there is that. Look, I will say the average age of my DVD buyers is 70 plus. These are people who don't just have DVD players, they also have cassette tape players and record players.
I'm surprised you don't have it in VHS.
All
right,
right,
guys.
it's been fun. It's a shame Rukshan had to
been
go,
fun.
but tonight's been fun. Thank you, Avi. Thank you, Rukshan. Thank you, Carly.
Thank you for coming, Avi. Appreciate your
Thank you,
stand-in.
guys.
I'm very disappointed Topher joined us, but what can I say? Here he is.
What more could you want other than my presence for 2 hours on a Monday night?
All right, guys.
Bye,
Thank you so
everybody.
much. See you all
Bye.
next time.